Chapter 1128. Lily was a little surprised to see the overly young man standing outside. Jin resembled Ming. If she hadn't known that he was Ming's father, she would have thought he was Ming's brother. Just by looking at their appearances, it was hard to tell the difference. Lily's daze only lasted for a moment. She quickly snapped out of it and tapped on the screen to open the door. "Uncle, come in quickly." Jin hadn't expected such a reaction from Lily. He had thought that she would blame him coldly and ask him what he was doing there. To prevent his wife from being humiliated, Jin had specifically stopped Xiao Ziqing from coming in. But it was clear that the girl was not what he had imagined. Jin's eyes flashed. He was satisfied. He walked in and asked, "Do you live alone?" Lily was stunned. She quickly shook her head and said, No, I live with my colleagues." "Oh, I see." Jin walked in and asked, "Do you need to change your shoes?" "No, Uncle, you can come in directly. Sit down. Would you like some coffee?" "You're welcome. I'm actually here today because I have something to discuss with you." Jin walked in, but he had no intention of sitting down. Lily could vaguely guess what it was. She asked, "Is it about Ming?" "Yes." Jin looked at Lily, paying attention to her expression. "My son was in a car accident yesterday. As you know, the situation isn't looking good." Lily tightened her grip on his hand and asked, "How is he?" "He has temporarily lost his sight due to blood loss," Jin said. "The doctor said that as long as he is in a good mood, he will have a chance of recovery. But lately, Ming has been in a bad mood." Jin paused. He realized that Lily didn't look surprised or surprised at all. "I hope that you can go see him." "Uncle," Lily interrupted him. "Your wife seems to have a very strong opinion of me. Yesterday, at the door of Ming's ward, Xiao is also very sorry about what happened yesterday. Her words were not very pleasant to hear. But miss you have to believe that all parents do everything for the sake of their children. My wife may have some misunderstandings about you. Why don't we go together and talk face to face?" Jin smiled. His eyes, which were identical to Ming's, looked at Lily with deliberation. She knew that he was also worried that she would hurt Ming. "How is Ming today?" "He's still in the hospital. He's in a bad mood and refuses to eat. He hasn't eaten anything since yesterday and has been relying on an infusion. If this goes on, we're afraid he won't be able to take it." Speaking of his son's situation, Jin felt a headache coming on. "He wants to see you now. He's been looking for you since yesterday. Let's go together." "What about Ming's mother?" "It was her idea." Jin knew that she was hesitating and said, she knew that she was being too harsh with her words. "You've been with Ming for so long, so you should know his temper. His mother's temper is exactly the same as his. They both have sharp tongues but soft hearts. They don't have much ill toward you." Chapter 1129. Lily was more sensible than Jin had imagined. At the same time, Jin was much friendlier than she had imagined. She followed Jin downstairs and sat in the back seat. "Miss you, are you an orphan?" "Yes, Uncle. I heard that you're not only working for Ming's comic company, but you're also drawing comics. Is that right?" "Yes, Uncle. Are you tired?" "Not all." Lily smiled. "Actually, any job is the same. You just have to get used to it. Drawing was originally just a hobby of mine." Jin looked at Lily through the rearview mirror and nodded his head. In a satisfied tone, he said, "It's not bad for a young person to have such thoughts, but you don't seem like an orphan. I know quite a few orphans, and they're all extreme and cynical. In comparison, you're much better." The compliment caught Lily off guard and made her a little surprised. Lily blushed. She didn't know how to respond. When Jin saw this, he smiled and asked, "When did you meet Ming?" "We've known each other for many years. About 7 or 8 years ago, when I had just finished my college entrance examination." As Lily spoke, she subconsciously glanced at Jin. If Jin wanted to investigate these matters, he could definitely do so. Just like the last time she had met Xiao Ziqing. Xiao Ziqing knew everything about her background. But why was he asking her now? Could it be that whatever Xiao Ziqing knew, Ming's father didn't? Or could it be that Ming's father just wanted to test him? Jin acted as if he hadn't noticed Lily's probing gaze. He looked straight ahead and asked, He went to your school to pursue you? As Oh Huijin asked the question, he inadvertently saw Yu Lily's awkward expression in the rearview mirror. He immediately said, I'm just a little curious. After all, Ming has never told his parents about his girlfriend. If you find it inconvenient to answer, you don't have to. It's fine. When Yu Lily heard that, she felt that Oh Huijin's temper was much better than Ming's and his mother's. After thinking about it, Yu Lily said, in fact, there's nothing to hide. About 7 or 8 years ago, I was admitted to college, but I didn't have any tuition to pay for it. When I was in a hurry to find a job, I was brought to a nightclub by a woman I knew. At that time, I didn't know what kind of job she was taking me to. When I realized it, I wanted to run away, but the manager and that sister refused to let me go. Ming seemed to have seen through me, so he picked me up, then he brought me home, helped me pay for my tuition, supported me to go to school. Then we got together. It was a bit embarrassing to talk about such a past. After all, in the eyes of others, such a matter was undoubtedly very embarrassing. Yu Lily's heart was beating fast, and she felt a little nervous. If it had been Ming's mother, Yu Lily believed that she would definitely have scolded her. How could you have a nerve to say such a thing? Do you have any shame? But what about Ming's father? What do you think? Yu Lily looked up at the rearview mirror. She wanted to see Oh Huijin's reaction. Chapter 11:30. It's nothing. I had a rough guess, but it was a little different from what I expected. Oh Huijin drove steadily. You're 6 years younger than our Ming. 7. Oh Huijin nodded his head and said, no wonder Ming's mother always felt that you were lying to her son. You are indeed a little too young. When Yu Lily heard that, she muttered to herself, Ming's mother isn't just worried that I'll lie to her son. She's worried about me as a person and even despises my identity and background. Yu Lily's heart was as clear as a mirror. She looked at Oh Huijin through the rearview mirror, but she couldn't see anything. This guy probably knew about it too, but at this time, she was still useful to them, so he didn't expose her, right? However, she had to admit that Ming's father's attitude made her feel quite comfortable. They soon arrived at the hospital. Oh Huijin dropped Yu Lily off at the entrance and let her in first. Then he parked his car. Yu Lily was nervous all the way, and there were countless ideas in her mind. If Ming's mother scolded her again, should she just turn around and leave? If Ming's mother didn't let her in, should she just turn around and leave? Before she reached the door, she saw Qiao Ziqing and Wen Fenglin standing together. As if they had heard the footsteps, the two of them turned around to look at him. When Yu Lily saw them, she grabbed her sleeves and walked over nervously. Hello, Auntie. Hello, Uncle One. When Wen Fenglin heard that, a smile broke out on his face. 2 deep dimples appeared on his cheeks. He nodded his head and said, hello, you're here. Yu Lily nodded her head. She glanced at Qiao Ziqing and said, he's here. Qiao Ziqing only glanced at him. She didn't say anything, nor did she express her opinion. She nodded in return and stood there silently. Yu Lily felt even more perturbed. What did she mean? Wen Fenglin waved at her and said, come on in. Have you eaten? There's food inside for 2. It's just right for you to eat with Ming. Yes. Yu Lily subconsciously glanced at Qiao Ziqing. Qiao Ziqing also looked at her, but she didn't say anything. Yu Lily gently pushed open the door of the ward. After closing the door behind her, she quietly walked over to the bedside. Ming was wearing a hospital gown and covered with a thick blanket. He was lying on the bed with his back to the door. She deliberately slowed down her pace and walked over to stand in front of him. Before she could speak, Ming said, help me up. Yu Lily put the bag aside and went forward to help him up without saying a word. However, Ming was heavier than she had imagined. Yu Lily's face turned red, and it took a lot of effort to lift him up. Not a single sound was made during the entire process. Ming's lips curled up slightly as he said, sit down. Yu Lily didn't move. She waved her finger in front of his face. Judging from his reaction, could it be that he already knew who she was? But she didn't make a sound, not even her footsteps. How did he recognize her? Ming reached out and firmly grasped her hand. He gently pulled it to his lips and kissed it. Sit down and feed me. Yu Lily retracted her hand and deliberately lowered her voice. Sir, please conduct yourself with dignity. I'm a nurse here. Chapter 1131. Eulili pushed him away and said angrily, "Pervert, why do you want everything?" Oming chuckled and pulled her over. "Because it's you." Eulili lost all her temper after hearing such a joke. Oming's smile deepened, and his eyes curved into two beautiful half-arcs. However, his eyes still looked a little lifeless and empty. Eulili sat down and said with some displeasure, "Do you know who I am?" "My Eulili." "Who's yours?" "You." Eulili was even more unhappy. She sneered, but her tone was much softer. She looked at his forehead and face wrapped in white gauze and asked, "Does it still hurt?" "It hurts," Oming answered honestly. "But I'm very hungry. Let's eat first." "Oof." Eulili turned around to open a cardboard box and asked, "You really haven't eaten anything since yesterday? Wasn't it supposed to be an act? Could it be that Oming was serious?" "Yeah." Oming's eyes were unfocused. He looked down, but his ear was still in Eulili's direction. He asked, "Did my father pick you up just now?" "Yeah," Eulili answered as she opened the cardboard box and took out the thermos inside. "Did he say anything?" "No. He just asked some questions, such as when we met, how old I am, and so on." "You told him how we met?" Eulili paused and took apart the disposable chopsticks. Her eyes dimmed, and she said, "I told him the truth." Oming was a little surprised and asked, "You told him?" "Yeah, I thought you wouldn't say it." After all, the past didn't seem to be very good for Eulili. Every time she mentioned it to her friends, Eulili would vaguely brush it off. She didn't lie, and she didn't tell the truth. After a long time, Oming understood what she meant. But she actually told the truth to his father? That was far beyond Oming's expectations. Shouldn't he be hiding things from his father and saying nice things instead? Eulili came over with a thermos and said, "Even if I don't tell the truth, can't your father check it himself? Tell the truth, and you'll be treated leniently. If you didn't tell the truth, it would be even more embarrassing if he was found out." Eulili scooped a spoonful of soup and blew on it before saying, "Drink some soup first. It's a little hot." Oming didn't move. Eulili brought the spoon to his mouth. Oming felt the warmth, so he opened his mouth slightly and drank the soup. "You drink it too. My aunt made it. It's delicious." Eulili smelled it and knew it was delicious. She scooped up a spoonful and tasted it. Her eyes lit up. "Great." She used to be a chef, specializing in making soup. Later, because my mother liked her skills, my father poached her to be our private chef. She has been doing this for more than 10 years. She suddenly thought of Oming's mother's temper and his father's temper. Did it mean that Oming's mother's temper was spoiled by Oming's father? It was true that Oming's father had a good temper, but it was unexpected that he was so affectionate. Eulili's eyes were filled with envy. She scooped another spoonful of soup for him and said, "Aren't you tired of eating it for so many years?" Chapter 1132. She paused in the act of feeding him soup and looked at Oming. She didn't know why, but she felt that Oming's words had a double meaning. Does that mean that he will continue and that he will always be with me? Thinking of that, Eulili's lips involuntarily curled up. She placed the soup bowl back on the table and covered it with a lid. She brought the rice over and deliberately said in a serious tone, "Eat." Outside the ward, Oming's parents were looking in through the window. When they saw the smile on Eulili's face, they were both experienced and had already grasped Eulili's emotions. From the looks of it, this girl really did have feelings for Oming. Moreover, this feeling was much deeper than the two of them had imagined. Seeing that Oming was finally willing to eat, Xiao Ziqing's eyes welled up. At the same time, she felt an indescribable sense of jealousy. I'm Oming's mother, who raised him for more than 30 years. Why would Oming listen to her and not me? When Huijin heard Xiao Ziqing's words, he couldn't help but laugh. He gently hooked his arm around her and said, "Children have their own blessings. Your son's taste has always been pickier than mine since he was young. It's not like you didn't know that." Xiao Ziqing was about to reply when she suddenly thought of something. She turned to look at her husband and said with some dissatisfaction, "Are you saying that I'm not as good as that girl?" "No, don't overthink it." Huijin didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "When did I say that? You didn't? You clearly said that our son's taste was more picky than yours. Are you saying that I'm not as good as her?" Xiao Ziqing reached out and pinched Oh Huijin's waist. No, no. If I had good taste back then, why wouldn't I have married you? I only realized how good you were after we got married. After all these years, there hasn't been a day that I haven't regretted it. How could I have been so blind back then? Xiao Ziqing was overjoyed when she heard that. She snorted and said, Old man, your son is already so big. Take it easy. With that, she turned and walked away. Oh Huijin immediately followed. Where are you going? To eat. Aren't you hungry? In other words, she was handing her son over completely to Yulili. Oh Huijin looked at her back and felt a little helpless. Then, as if remembering something, he asked, Where's Laowen? I don't know. Give him a call. Xiao Ziqing continued walking without stopping. Oh Huijin picked up his phone to call Wen Fenglin, but no one picked up. Seeing that Xiao Ziqing had already walked far away, Oh Huijin hurried after her. At the same time, in the opposite direction behind them, there was a stairwell with an unlatched door. The melodious and urgent ringtone of a cell phone rang incessantly. The ringtone sounded muffled, as if it was stuck in his pocket, when Fenglin was lying on the ground. His eyes were half closed, and his hand was stretched out over his head. A small section of the cigarette was still burning, giving off smoke. When he heard the ringtone, Wen Fenglin tried his best to reach for his phone, but no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't pull it out. When he finally took out his phone, the ringtone had abruptly stopped. Wen Fenglin unlocked the phone with his fingerprint. Just as he was about to call Oh Huijin back, another call came in. He pressed the button and ended the call. Wen Fenglin suddenly felt like laughing, but his consciousness was becoming more and more blurry. He opened his mouth, but all that came out was a mosquito-like cry for help. Help dash. Chapter 1133. In the ward, Yulili was feeding Oh Ming. At the same time, she was eating from a lunchbox. As she ate, she asked, Are you full? I want to drink soup. Oh Ming's tone was like a child talking to an adult. He gently placed his hand on her leg to prevent her from running away and not being able to feel her presence. Yulili moved his hand away and said, I'll go get it. She turned around and returned with the soup bowl. She found Oh Ming listening to her movements with his ear to the side. What are you doing? Yulili sat back on the bed. I'm trying to see if I can hear what you're doing. I've heard that there's a blind man who's really amazing. Not only can he hear what his wife is doing, but he also knows exactly where she is and does whatever he wants. Wife, Yulili smiled and said, I'm afraid he won't be able to see for many years. Do you want to get better? Don't speak. I'll listen for a while. Oh Ming reached out with his uninjured hand. Yulili saw his hand reach out, and her eyes darkened. She took 2 steps forward and pushed the hem of her jacket forward. Hearing the faint sound in front of him, Oh Ming reached out and firmly grasped the hem of Yulili's jacket. The hem of the down jacket felt good to the touch. Oh Ming's expression was one of triumph. See, I'm still very amazing. Even if I can't see in the future, I can still find you with my hearing. Yulili's heart ached. She smiled and said, Really? Why don't you try again later? Oh Ming didn't let go of the hem of her jacket. He pulled her gently and said, Yulili, I don't know what my father told you, but the doctor said that the worst-case scenario is that I might not be able to see for the rest of my life. It's very likely that I'll be blind and never see you again. Are you sure you still want to be with me? This was the most realistic problem, and it was also the problem that Oh Ming had been most worried about for the past 2 days. When Yulili heard that, she looked at his face. There wasn't much expression on Oh Ming's face. His eyes were empty and lifeless. He was looking down and slightly tilting his head to listen. His hand gripped the hem of her clothes tightly. Yulili reached out and gently placed her hand on his. When she was about to speak, she heard him say, I have already prepared for the worst. I don't want to hide it from you, nor do I want to lie to you. Yulili, it is very likely that I will lose my ability to work in the future. My father is getting old. In the future, he might not be as glorious as he was today. Is that okay? Hearing that, Yulili tightened her grip on him. She reached out her hand angrily and pressed lightly on the place where his bone was fractured. Ah! Oh Ming screamed in pain and frowned. Does it hurt? It hurts, Ming shouted. Serves you right. Lily pressed it again. What do you mean? Do you think I'm with you just because you have money? When Ming heard that, he felt a little suffocated. Even if it wasn't the whole reason, it was probably a large part of the reason. Chapter 1134. Oh, Ming smiled. What kind of performance are you talking about? Lily replied. What kind of thoughts are you having in your head? I didn't say anything. What are you thinking about? Ming looked innocent. He touched his chin with a troubled expression and said, It's not convenient for me to do it now. Why don't I lie down and you do it yourself? Lily's face reddened. She reached out and pinched his uninjured arm. We're in the hospital, she scolded. Ming laughed out loud when he heard that. The atmosphere in the ward was so good that happiness was fermenting. At the same time, the door of the ward was knocked twice and opened. A young nurse walked in. When she saw Lily, she said, Miss, there's an uncle with his hair tied up. He looks to be in his 50s. Is he your family member? His hair tied up? In his 50s? When Feng Lin? What's wrong? This uncle fainted in the stairwell due to coronary heart disease. Our medical staff found him and sent him for emergency treatment. If he's your family member, please come over. Fainted? Lily was shocked. She put the soup bowl back and asked, How is he now? I'm not too sure. Come with me. Oh, okay. I'll be right back. Lily put the things back and wanted to walk away, but she found that Ming was holding her clothes tightly. Lily felt helpless. She removed Ming's hand and coaxed him in a low voice. I'll come back later. I'm going to see Uncle One. Are you coaxing a child? Ming was even more unhappy, but he still let go of her clothes and said, Come back soon. I haven't had any soup. Okay. Lily kissed him gently on the cheek and released him. Ming wasn't willing to let her go. He grabbed her hand and said, Kiss. I'm going to see Uncle One. Kiss. Ming's words were childish. He looked like he was acting coquettishly. Lily glanced at the nurse, and her cheeks heated up. She quickly lowered her head and planted a kiss on Ming's lips before walking out. The nurse looked at Lily ambiguously, and her cheeks became hotter and hotter. He pretended that he hadn't seen anything and followed her in the direction of Wen Fenglin with a calm demeanor. When they arrived, they learned that Wen Fenglin's condition wasn't too optimistic. In the emergency room, the doctors and nurses were busy. Lily paced back and forth in front of the emergency room, and a nurse came up to her. This is the patient's cell phone. You can call the other family members. This matter could be big or small. We can't guarantee anything. Lily took it and nodded her head. Thank you. As soon as Lily got the phone, she recognized it at a glance. It was his other phone. The nurse's words could not be clearer. With Wen Fenglin's current condition, it would be a miracle if he could be saved. If he couldn't be saved, it was better to inform his family. Lily opened the phone and found that there was no password at all. It was an old-fashioned phone, probably a popular model 2 or 3 years ago. It was popular for a period of time, but it has long since been discontinued. She hadn't expected Wen Fenglin to be so nostalgic. When she opened the phone, she realized that it was lagging. She opened the contact list and saw that there were quite a number of calls. There were at least 40 to 50 calls. However, there wasn't a single name or note that she suspected belonged to his family. Chapter 1135. There was only one symbol on the last number. It was the symbol of a house. Lily recognized the symbol. It meant home. She unlocked the phone and dialed the number. The caller was from a small city in Kong Province. It wasn't far from the provincial capital, Kingstown. Lily had stayed there for a period of time when she was traveling. It was a nice little city. The call was quickly answered by an old woman. She sounded shaky and excited. She shouted, Hello, Laowu. Is this me, Laowu? Have you come back from home? She was speaking in Cantonese. Lily understood. Laowu, was Wen Fenglin the fifth child of his family? Lily cleared her throat and asked, Hello, do you know Wen Fenglin? Are you from the side? Do you know how to use my Laowu's phone to call my house? I'm Uncle Wen's friend. My name is Lily. May I know how you are related to Uncle Wen? Hold on. I'll get my grandson to talk to you, the old woman shouted. As the old woman spoke, she shouted, Gio, come and answer the phone. It's your fifth uncle. Lily could clearly hear footsteps coming from the other end of the line. A young man's voice could be heard. "Hello, fifth uncle." The voice sounded like he was in his mid-20s. Very young. "I'm not fifth uncle. Do you know Lin? He's fifth uncle. We're in Kingstown now, and he's in the hospital. He's suffering from coronary heart disease. Would you like to come over?" There was a moment of silence on the other end of the line. The old woman asked, "Is that okay?" The young man's voice could be heard again. "Did my uncle ask you to make this call?" "No, he's in the emergency room," Lily said. "I thought I should call his family, so I got it." "Which hospital is it?" "I'll head over right away." "What's your relationship with my uncle?" "We can be considered friends, all right." "Thank you for informing us. Give me the address. I'll jot it down." Lily gave the address, and the call was hung up. About 10 minutes later, the door to the emergency room was opened. When the doctors and nurses came out, Lily rushed forward and asked, "How is it?" Fortunately, it was a close shave, but he still needs to be observed. He needs to stay in the ICU. "Go pay the fee." She breathed a sigh of relief and nodded. After paying the bill, Lin's phone started to vibrate. But this time, it was a cell phone number. Sure enough, it was the young man from before. "Hello, Mississippi. My name is Hugio. What's your phone number? Let me make a note to not use my uncle's phone to contact you later. I'm afraid he'll blame you." "Why?" Lily was a little surprised, but she quickly thought of something and said, "Uncle Win has been rescued now." The doctor said it was a close shave. Hugio also seemed relieved and said, "That's good. I'll be there in about an hour. Don't tell my uncle that I'm here. Delete the call history." "Thank you." Lily was dumbfounded. They were both surnamed Win. Hugio must really be Lin's nephew, right? Why was he acting like a thief? Chapter 1136. From his tone, it was clear that he was worried. It couldn't be Lin's enemy. Lily thought about it and deleted the record as she was told. When she arrived at Lin's ward, she walked in. His heartbeat was normal, but his face was pale. His eyes were closed, and he looked like he was in a coma. Lily placed her phone on the side of his bed. Just as she put it down, she heard the phone vibrate. The sound was particularly abrupt in the silence. It gave Lily a fright. She quickly picked up the phone. When she saw the caller, she answered and called out, "Uncle O." When Huijin heard Lily's voice, he was equally surprised. He asked, "Why is it you? Where's Wen?" "Uncle Wen just fainted in the stairwell. He was sent to the ER and just came out." Huijin's heart skipped a beat. "How did this happen? What's the situation now?" "Not too bad. It was a close shave," Lily said. "Which room?" After Lily gave the room number, she hung up the phone. When she turned her head, she saw Lin looking at her. Lily was shocked. She glanced down at the cell phone in her hand and smiled sheepishly. With a guilty conscience, she said, "It's Ming's father. He's asking about your situation." Lily was shocked. When Lin nodded his head slightly and asked in a small voice, "Did you save me?" "No. The doctor found you when he passed by, so he sent you to the ER. I was called over by the nurse later." Lily felt a little uneasy as she said, "Uncle Wen, are you not on good terms with your family?" When Lin heard that, he looked at Lily strangely and said, "I don't have any family. Have you forgotten? Everyone calls me a poor, wandering artist." With that, Lin laughed. His white hair was spread across the pillow. Without his glasses, his eyes were small. On his pale face, 2 deep dimples appeared on both sides of his cheeks. Lily felt a little awkward. It turned out that Uncle Win's relationship with his family wasn't as simple as that. From the looks of it, she had done something bad out of good intentions. A very, very, very bad thing. What should I do? With a strange expression on her face, Lily looked up at Lin and said, "Uncle Wen, leniency to those who confess, severity to those who resist." Lily was about to confess when her phone suddenly rang. Lily cursed inwardly. She picked up the phone and looked at it. The caller ID was indeed from Zhuang City. In other words, it belonged to Lin's nephew. Lily was a little embarrassed and said, "I'll go take a call." As he spoke, he ran out of the door and closed the door before answering the call. "Miss Yu, which ward is it? I'll go there in a moment." "No need, no need. You don't have to come over." Lily wished she could strangle herself to death. Mr. Wen, can you tell me what happened between your family and Uncle Wen? Or is there any history between them? After a moment of silence, when Hajio said, "Do you mean that you don't want me to see my uncle?" Chapter 1137. When Hajio did not speak, she could hear the sound of cars honking around them. Lily felt that she was a scapegoat. Feeling a little guilty and nervous, she said, "You'd better not come. This is my fault. I'm sorry. Let's just pretend that it never happened. Actually, there's a reason for this. Why don't we meet up and talk about it? Then you can decide whether or not to let me see my uncle. What do you think?" When Hajio sounded like he was discussing it, but his tone made it sound like Lily would definitely agree to it. This made Lily a little uncomfortable. Indeed, she was very curious as to why Wen Fenglin had become a wandering artist. She was also very curious as to why he had such a huge feud with his family. But that wouldn't do. Lily had no right to do that. At most, she was just a stranger who had met Wen Fenglin by chance. Furthermore, Wen Fenglin had helped her a lot. If Wen Fenglin didn't want to see Wen Hajio at all and was lured there by her, now, this was awkward. Lily was perturbed. At that moment, she was filled with remorse. She immediately rejected the offer and said, "Forget it, Mr. Wen. I'm not interested. Uncle Wen is very good to me. I can't cheat him. Miss you, you're helping him." When Hajio sounded a little helpless, as she said, where you could tell him that his father has Alzheimer's disease and talks about him every day. "I'm afraid he doesn't have much time left. I hope he can go back and see the old man." The determination in Lily's heart suddenly wavered. She couldn't help but ask, "What exactly happened? My father also misses him very much. Fifth uncle is at our house. Hey, let's meet and talk. Fifth uncle has a misunderstanding with our family, and it's hard to explain it in a short time. If you don't want to see me in the hospital, then we can meet at a coffee shop or somewhere else to sit down and talk." No. I'm sorry. I was too reckless. You should go back. Goodbye." Lily hung up the phone and walked downstairs. She instructed the receptionist not to reveal Wen Fenglin's room number before returning to Wen Fenglin's room. Lily felt guilty and anxious. He suddenly felt as if he had done something unforgivable. Initially, since Wen Fenglin was undergoing emergency treatment, it was out of goodwill to inform his family. After all, fainting from coronary heart disease could be a serious matter. Unexpectedly, there was such a layer in between. If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have listened to that nurse. What should I do? Feeling apprehensive, he pushed open the door and walked in. Wen Fenglin looked over at the same time. Lily was a little nervous and asked, "Do you want some water? Are you hungry?" Wen Fenglin shook his head and beckoned her over. "Come here for a moment." She walked over and sat down on the stool beside the bed. "Why are you suddenly asking about my family?" Wen Fenglin asked. Lily looked away guiltily and said, "I'm just curious. Ha." Wen Fenglin chuckled. "Actually, I seem to have said something to someone just now. Was it you?" "What did he say?" "Don't call me family." Wen Fenglin looked at Lily and sighed. "Is it you?" Chapter 1138. Wen Fenglin laughed and asked, "Can you pour me a glass of water?" Lily quickly got up and poured him a glass of warm water. She put it on the table and carefully helped him up. I'll do it myself. Wen Fenglin waved his hand and sat up. He reached out to take the water from Lily. Lily reached over and handed the cup to him, but she didn't dare to move her hand away. She was afraid that the water on the cup would spill. Fortunately, Wen Fenglin's hand was still steady. After he finished drinking, he laughed and said, "Don't worry, it's not a big deal. Go back to Oming's side. I'll sleep for a while." So, after changing the topic, he just had to chase her away. Lily was well aware of that. She tossed the cup aside and nodded her head. On the way back to Oming's ward, she ran into Huijin and his wife. After greeting them, she told them about Wen Fenglin's condition before returning to Oming's room. The sky began to darken. Today was the second day of the new year. There were not many people in the hospital, and the surroundings seemed a little empty. When she pushed open the door of the ward, Oming was not in bed. Lily was shocked and called out, "Oming!" Oming's voice didn't come out. Instead, there was the sound of something falling to the ground. Lily followed the sound and saw that it was coming from the bathroom in the ward. Lily quickly walked over and pushed the bathroom door open. "Oh," she yelled. Ming was next to the washstand. His uninjured hand touched the washstand. On the floor, a jar of hand sanitizer fell. Ming pursed his lips when he heard Lily's voice. "What are you doing here? Wash your hands." "I'm going to the bathroom," Ming said. His hand, which was still covered in bubbles, reached out to touch Lily. But he didn't know where the toilet was, so he could only stand there and wash his hands. He found a toothbrush, rinsed his mouth, and brushed his teeth. He hadn't expected Lily to return so soon. "Are you going to pee here?" Lily didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "This is the sink. Come, I'll take you there." Ming felt a little embarrassed. He coughed and said, "Wait a minute, my clothes." Lily looked down at his clothes and found that the front of his body was wet. He was wearing a thin hospital gown, and he didn't even have a coat on. Like a playful child, Ming seemed to be at a loss at the moment. Lily looked up and saw his somewhat embarrassed face. Her heart was inexplicably sour. Taking off the down jacket, Lily gently placed it on his shoulder and said, "Go to the bathroom first, then change your clothes." It would be good if he didn't hold it in. It seemed that Ming hadn't relieved himself yet. Lily helped him to the bathroom. Just as she was about to help him take off his pants, he pushed her hand away. Pursing his lips, he said, "I'll do it myself. Turn around." Lily's eyes became hot. After a sound of agreement, she turned her back to him and didn't look at him. It was dark in front of Ming. He bent down and reached out to confirm the position of the toilet bowl before he began to remove it. Unbeknownst to him, Lily, who was behind him, saw his jerky and confused movements, and her eyes were already red. Lily helped him to the sink. After washing his hands, she brought him back to the side of the bed. Their movements were careful, and no one spoke first. Chapter 1139. But Ming's hand was a little inconvenient. Lily helped him change his pants first, then spent a lot of effort to help him change his shirt. Ming didn't say a word. After Lily helped him fasten the last button, he pulled her into his arms with his uninjured arm. Lily was stunned, but very quickly, she obediently leaned on his shoulder and gently hugged him. "Lily." Ming's voice was a little hoarse, and he sounded a little depressed. Lily's heart trembled slightly. She hugged him tightly and answered, "Yeah, I'm here. I want to be discharged from the hospital. Go and find my parents." "Discharged? How can you be discharged at this time?" Lily looked at his hand in a cast and frowned. "It's okay. It's not a big problem. Besides, we have a family doctor at home. We can invite him over when the time comes." Ming gently pushed her away and said, "Go." Lily looked at him and knew that he must be in a very bad mood. But this was the first time that Lily had seen Ming like this. He was a little depressed and a little frustrated. He was no longer confident, no longer flamboyant, and even no longer looked calm. This matter had a great impact on him. What Ming had lost was not just his sight. Lily's heart seemed to be blocked by something. She looked at him deeply, nodded faintly, turned around, and walked toward the door. But she didn't go out. Instead, she slowly stepped back and faced Ming. After taking a few steps, she didn't move anymore. Ming seemed to listen for a while. When he found that there was no sound, his whole body relaxed. He touched the back of his neck and moved back with one hand. He reached out to touch the bedside table, but as soon as his hand touched it, he touched a thermos flask. It suddenly rolled down and made a loud sound in a low voice. Lily subconsciously wanted to go forward, but reason quickly stopped her as she abruptly stopped in her tracks. Ming retracted his hand slightly and quickly touched the bedside table again. What is he looking for? Lily wanted to ask him, but she didn't dare to go forward. But after Ming searched around and didn't find what he was looking for, he retracted his hand. Feeling a little frustrated, he lay on the bed. Turning around, with his back to the door, Lily couldn't see his expression. What was he trying to do? Lily was so curious that she wanted to ask him to solve the problem and help him find it, but she was worried that she would hurt his feelings. Lily stood in the same spot for a long time. Just as she was about to turn around and walk out, she heard the sound of heavy breathing. He turned his head and saw that the body wrapped in the white bedsheet was trembling slightly. The range was not large, but it did exist. Is he crying? When Eulili realized this, she felt as if something had hit her heart hard, and the pain reached her eyes. The warm liquid came up, and Eulili didn't dare to stay. She gently walked out, opened and closed the door, and her movements were very, very gentle. However, on the bed, Ming's back stiffened. He closed his eyes and didn't move. She walked out and headed straight for Fenglin's ward. Huijin and Xiao Ziqing were both there. When they saw Eulili enter, they were a little surprised. Eulili looked around and politely greeted Uncle Annie. Chapter 1140. Fenglin's complexion and spirits were much better than before. He had tied up his hair and put on his glasses. He looked no different from his usual self. He had a clean demeanor and a warm smile. When Fenglin replied, "I'm much better. Thank you, Mississippi. How is Ming?" Eulili recalled how Ming had been trembling with his back turned to her. Her heart ached and her eyes burned. She nodded her head and replied, "He's fine." She looked up at Huijin and his wife and said, "Uncle and Auntie, Ming wishes to be discharged from the hospital and return home to recuperate." "No," Xiao Ziqing panicked. "How can he do that? His injuries are serious. The doctors and nurses in the hospital have to take care of him at all times. If he stays at home, what if something happens?" "That won't happen." Eulili shook her head. Her eyelids drooped. She was in low spirits. Actually, the most important factor in recuperating is one's mood. There are too many restrictions in the hospital. I wish to bring him home to recuperate. Perhaps. As she spoke, her eyes reddened even more. She looked up and smiled. "Didn't the doctor say that Ming's eyes might recover at any time? If we cheer him up, he might recover even faster." Judging from the way Eulili spoke and the tone of her voice, it was clear that she had treated Ming as one of her own. That tone of voice made Xiao Ziqing very unhappy. But it was undeniable that what Eulili had said made sense. Huijin nodded his head and said, "All right. In that case, come to our house. Miss you, if it's possible, I hope that you can move in with us. Our son likes you very much and is very reliant on you. Is that all right?" Although Huijin's words were a question, his tone didn't imply at all. When Xiao Ziqing heard that, she immediately replied, "Don't worry. We'll pay you, Auntie." Eulili's words were almost forced out of her mouth. She clenched her fists and said, "I think you might have misunderstood. I want to be with Ming because I like him. I'm willing to be with him. Similarly, it doesn't matter if he's blind or disabled. I'll take care of him. To put it bluntly, if he dies in a car accident, I'll die with him." Huijin felt that Xiao Ziqing's words were hurtful, but she hadn't expected Eulili to say them. Live and die together? Huijin found it hard to believe. As for Xiao Ziqing, she found it extremely laughable. How long has it been since they started talking about life and death? Although Xiao Ziqing had such thoughts in her heart, she did not voice them out. When Eulili saw the expression on Xiao Ziqing's face, she could guess what was going on. Eulili felt a little angry, but at this critical juncture, she couldn't lose her temper. Looking at Xiao Ziqing, she forced a smile and said, "The reason is simple. I love him, I want to marry him, I want to be with him, that's all." "Miss you." Huijin was just about to speak up for Xiao Ziqing when Eulili interrupted him. "Uncle, I've conveyed the message. I agree with Ming's suggestion. I'll be discharged first and recuperate. That's more important than anything else. I'll be leaving first. Goodbye, Uncle Wen." When Fenglin smiled and nodded his head. "Goodbye." Chapter 1141. The more Xiao Ziqing thought about it, the angrier she got. She muttered to herself, "If she becomes a member of the O family, this little bit of remuneration will be nothing." Oomph. Xiao Ziqing crossed her arms as she watched Eulili leave. This kind of woman is too scheming. Our son has been fooled by her. When Huijin heard that, he looked at his wife helplessly. At the same time, he felt a headache coming on. He said, Xiao, don't think so badly of human nature. That girl isn't the kind of person you think she is." "How do you know?" Xiao Ziqing turned her head and looked at him with displeasure. "You don't know? That kind of girl is what the internet calls a green tea bitch. She knows how to act, and has tricks up her sleeve. She's ambitious and seduces many men with her beauty. Lao, oh, don't tell me you've been attracted to her as well. Jean was exasperated. You're not allowed to watch television next time. If I catch you, I'll smash the television. You're not allowed to browse Weibo or use your phone either. I'll smash it every time you watch it. Xiao Ziqing pouted. She hugged Jean's arm and said, Why? It's not my fault. I'm just saying it in front of you. I won't say it in front of her. Xiao, that girl might not be as bad as you think she is. You could try to understand her. I talked to her briefly today, and I realized that she has an extraordinary temperament. Jean looked at his wife helplessly. Don't think too badly of human nature. Don't think too well of human nature either, Xiao Ziqing retorted. It's always good to be on your guard. Wen Fenglin listened to the conversation between the couple and chuckled. The two dimples on his face made him look especially amiable. He said, I think what old O said is right. This young lady has a kind heart. Xiao Ziqing was displeased. She asked unhappily, Why are all of you speaking up for her? You know Ming's situation very well, Wen Fenglin said. It's rare to have such a girl by his side. Besides, Xiao likes this girl. As elders, we should do what's best for our children. No matter what, we have to make Ming feel better first. We can talk about the rest later. Wen Fenglin looked at Xiao Ziqing with the same helplessness in his eyes. Xiao, you haven't changed at all. You always like to think the worst of people. Xiao Ziqing didn't say a word, but it was obvious that she was unhappy. She retorted, This is called nipping the problem in the bud. Wen Fenglin smiled and didn't say another word. He subconsciously glanced at the door, and there was a faint meaning in the depths of his eyes. When Lily returned to Ming's ward, she found that he was still in the same position. She gently walked up to him and walked around him. Ming was already asleep, breathing evenly. His head was wrapped in gauze, and only his face was exposed. Lily sat in front of him and looked at his sleeping face. She reached out to tuck him in. Just as she was about to remove her hand, Ming raised his hand and gently placed it on hers. Without opening his eyes, Ming asked, What was the result? I don't know. Lily gently pulled her hand back. I didn't wait for their reply before I came back. Did my mom scold you again? No. However, it was even worse than being scolded. Chapter 1142. Ming didn't ask any more questions. He reached out and gently placed his hand on hers. Today is the second day of the new year, right? Yeah, it was indeed the second day of the new year. It was supposed to be a day for family reunion. For an orphan without a home, it was no different from any other day. It must be very lively outside. I was going to take you to Kingstown Tower to play, but I can't go now. Ming felt a little regretful. It's okay. If I can't make it this year, I'll go next year. There'll always be time. Ming felt even more regretful. It wasn't as simple as just going there to play. He had originally planned to propose. At the busiest time of the year, it would become the most anticipated proposal ceremony. When the Bureau of Civil Affairs was back at work, he would go and get the marriage certificate. But it was impossible to realize now. He couldn't see anything with his eyes. He couldn't even see her face. What right did he have to promise her a future? His heart ached a little. He released Lily's hand with his uninjured hand and was about to prop himself up to sit up. Lily quickly helped him up and said, Slow down. Ming's movements were the same, but with Lily's help, it was much easier. He sat up straight and lifted the blanket. He put his legs down and said, Take me out for a walk. Sure, Lily replied. Wait a moment. She turned around and picked up the coat hanging on the coat rack. She helped Ming put it on and said, I'll help you put it on. Raise your hand. Ming raised his hand and put it through the sleeves. When he finally put the coat on, Lily looked at his lower body. The hospital gown was a little thin. Would it be cold to just wear it like that? I'll find you a pair of pants. Lily turned around to open the closet. Ming didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He asked, Are my pants dirty? It's windy outside. I'm afraid of the cold. It's okay. Let's go. My body isn't that bad. Ming stood up and tugged at his clothes. Hold my hand. Lily thought about it and agreed. Ming's pants weren't that thick. Along the way, the wind grew stronger and stronger. Lily took him to the hospital garden, where children were playing. At the same time, the elderly and the hospitalized disabled were walking and chatting in the park. She helped him to a quiet and secluded bench to sit down. The wind today was a little strong and chilly. Not far to the left, there was a little girl who looked about 3 or 4 years old. She was wearing a pink jumpsuit and looked around. She was holding a doll in her hands and ran to the right. Her laughter was a little shrill, but her smile was bright and lively. She shouted, "I'm your big sister. You can't chase me." Right behind that little girl, another little girl wearing the same clothes caught up and shouted, "I'm the elder sister. You're the younger sister. Wait for me." The little girl was out of breath. When she got closer, Lily realized that they looked exactly the same. Twins? Ming asked. Twin girls, about 3 or 4 years old. Lily was surprised and turned to look at Ming. "How did you know?" Chapter 1143. Lily's heart skipped a beat when she heard that. The wound that had already been buried deep was dug up again, caught off guard. Their hands were still held together. If Lily moved a little, Ming could clearly feel the change in her movements. With a smile, Ming said, "It would be better if it were 2 girls." Ming, "Yeah, I'm sorry." Lily felt a little sad and tightened her grip on his hand. "I should have told you at the time. Those 2 children can't be kept, can they?" Ming gently held her hand and said, "It's a pity that they were my first child. In the future, you have to be pregnant with at least triplets to make up for this sin." Hearing the words triplets, Lily chuckled and scolded. "Do you think I'm a pig? Then let's have 3. The first will be a girl, the second will be a boy, and the third will be twins." "That makes 4, Lily said. "Well, then let's have 4. Anyway, the more the better. I don't want to have so many children. I heard that giving birth is very painful." "The pain will be over soon. Just treat it as a needle prick. It's not that simple. You are indeed a straight man. Do you know how painful it is to give birth?" "You know? I don't want to know. It doesn't matter. Those women must have exaggerated the pain. It shouldn't be that painful. There's no smoke without fire. If it wasn't true, how could they be so sure? It's used to deceive men." Ming's tone was very certain. Lily glared at him and growled, "Straight man. Yeah, I'm a straight man. If I'm not straight, I'm gay." Ming smiled and gently pulled her closer. He whispered in her ear, "Don't worry. I will be a straight man for the rest of my life. I will want to sleep with you anytime, anywhere." Lily was angry. She pointed her finger at his cheek and said in a low voice, "You are not only a straight man, but you are also a pervert. You're a big pervert. How can you say that about your man? You're challenging the authority of a straight man." With a straight face, Ming moved closer to Lily's face and said, "The consequences will be severe, little you. Mr. O, this is a hospital. Otherwise, do you think you can still sit still?" Ming lowered his voice slightly, and the last syllable was so low and charming that it made people's hearts skip a beat. When Lily heard that, she pushed his face away and said, "You're injured to this extent, and you're still trying to act like a hooligan. You're so dedicated." "That's easy." Ming leaned closer and kissed her on the cheek. "A hooligan doesn't forget his nature. That's a good character." Just as Lily was about to retort, she found that the 2 little girls who had just run past them were running towards them. Lily's cheeks were slightly hot as she said, "There are children coming. Be careful of your image." The 2 twin girls giggled and chased each other. The 2 little fellows tossed the plush toy around, full of energy and youth. Ming let go of Lily and listened to the sound of the children playing. His mood improved a lot. The atmosphere in the park was peaceful and beautiful. However, one of the 2 little girls, who were running around happily, suddenly stopped running. She stopped, and her complexion became worse and worse. The one in front stopped, turned around, and shouted, "Sister." Chapter 1144. The 2 children fell to the ground one after another. Their faces were pale without warning. It seemed that the 2 children were still trembling, and beads of sweat appeared on their foreheads. Lily was shocked and said to Ming, "The 2 children don't seem to be feeling well. I'll go take a look." "Okay." Lily quickly walked forward. At the same time, A woman who looked to be in her 30s shouted, "Nana, Lily." As he shouted, he had already run over to the two little girls. Lily stopped in her tracks and looked at them. The woman's eyes were red with anxiety. She looked up at Lily and pleaded, "Miss, can you help me? My daughters have congenital diabetes. I have to send them to get insulin immediately." Lily quickly walked forward and said, "Didn't you give them the insulin in advance? Quick, I'll help you carry one. Let's go together." The woman quickly nodded her head. She picked up one of the children and ran forward. Lily helped carry one of the children and followed the woman to bring the children inside. Ming listened to Lily's footsteps and voices fade away. He sat on the bench alone, feeling a little uneasy. With his hands on his legs, Ming sat where he was and listened to the children playing around and the voices of the elderly talking. His mood wasn't as good as it had been before. It turned out that the same scene was a different feeling without that person. The two children were sent to the emergency room. The mother of the children was so anxious that she spun around in circles. Lily comforted her and said, "It's okay. Don't be too nervous. The children are blessed by heaven. They'll be fine." Originally, the mother of the children had been relatively calm. When she heard Lily's words, she immediately burst into tears and choked out, "It's all my fault. I shouldn't have given birth to them. Otherwise, they wouldn't have to suffer like this." Lily was annoyed. She suddenly felt that the mother of the children was a little hateful. She didn't want to comfort her and said, "You can't say that. It's a blessing to have children by our side. Science is so advanced now. Even diabetes can be treated. You don't know. Back then, their father didn't allow me to give birth. They came without any warning. During the few days I was pregnant with them, I took birth control pills." Lily was stunned when she heard that. She asked, "This is the after effect?" The woman nodded with tears in her eyes. "Today, I brought them to the hospital to visit my father and to give them insulin. Who knew I would forget the time? It's all my fault." Lily patted her on the shoulder and said, "It'll be fine." Other than that, Lily found herself at a loss for words. It turned out that the consequences were so serious. After about 10 minutes, the child was declared safe and sound. Lily and the child's mother breathed a sigh of relief. After saying goodbye to her, Lily returned to the place where she had just been. Ming was still in the same place. He hadn't left or moved. Lily walked up to him and gently placed her hand on his arm. "I'm back." "Yes." Ming's expression was obviously relaxed. He held her hand and asked softly, "How is it?" "The children are fine." He looked at the time and said, "It's already dinner time. Are you hungry?" Chapter 1145. That night, Xiao Ziqing and Huajin completed his discharge procedures. When Lily and Ming were picked up, it was already past 9 p.m. However, it wasn't the villa in Xishan, nor was it Ming's apartment. It was Huajin and Xiao Ziqing's home. The house was huge, even bigger than the villa in Xishan. It was even bigger than Ming's own apartment. This was according to Xiao Ziqing's wishes. Firstly, it was convenient to take care of the family. Secondly, it was the new year. They couldn't stay out all the time. Although they were injured, they still had to maintain the atmosphere of the new year. Considering that Ming couldn't leave Lily, Xiao Ziqing cleaned up a guest room and let him stay in. Ming hadn't showered in the past few days. He didn't even change his clothes. His mental state was much better than it had been 2 days ago. As soon as they got home, Xiao Ziqing personally went to the kitchen to cook. After Lily accompanied Ming back to his room, Ming gave her a gentle push and said, "My mom is going to cook. You go help in the kitchen." Is he asking me to ride on his coattails? Lily felt a little strange, but she knew it was only right. Apart from her relationship with Ming, she was a guest in the household. She couldn't possibly expect the host to serve her well, could she? There was nothing wrong with having some self-awareness. Lily walked to the kitchen and volunteered to help Xiao Ziqing wash the vegetables and cut the meat. After she walked in, she didn't say a word. Xiao Ziqing glanced at her and didn't say anything. She lowered her head and continued with her work. After the ingredients were processed, Lily took the initiative to boil a pot of water. She placed it on the gas stove and turned on the fire. "Do you know how to cook?" Xiao Ziqing asked from behind. Her voice was emotionless. However, Lily could clearly hear a hint of disdain in his voice. She didn't know if it was an illusion or if it was real, but she was already used to it. Even if it was real, it didn't matter. Nodding her head, Lily continued. In the past, Ming didn't like to eat breakfast. Sometimes, he would even have lunch casually. He would often have stomach pains in the middle of the night, so I learned a few tricks. When did you start learning? Xiao Ziqing was behind Lily, so she couldn't see her expression. This time, Xiao Ziqing's words were a lot calmer. Lily couldn't guess what she meant by that. Lily was a little scared, but she didn't dare look back. She replied, about 6 or 7 years ago. After I learned how to cook for him, I cooked for him for a long time. It shouldn't be too bad. Xiao Ziqing stopped talking and looked at Lily's back. She had a whole new level of respect for the girl. Could it be that this girl knew how to cook for her son? Oomph. At least he knew how to behave. He knew to come to help and show off. Although Xiao Ziqing knew her motive, she didn't feel as disgusted as before. Perhaps it was because of Old One and Old O's words in the afternoon. All right, I'll go buy some fruits. If you can do it, you can do it. Xiao Ziqing didn't stay any longer. She turned around and walked out. Lily didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This woman is really rude, but did this mean that he had started to change his opinion of her? Chapter 1146. When Lily finished cooking the first dish and covered it, Xiao Ziqing returned with the fruits. Xiao Ziqing was washing the fruits at the back, and Lily was cooking the soup. Neither of them spoke. The atmosphere wasn't awkward or tense, which was beyond Lily's expectations. When the dishes were ready, Lily brought them out and called out, Annie, can you ask Uncle to come out for dinner? I'll bring Ming out. Xiao Ziqing didn't respond or make a sound. She just sat on the sofa. Lily knew that Xiao Ziqing had a problem with her, so she didn't wait for her response and went into the room. When Ming heard the sound, he knew that she was back. He asked, how is it? It's time to eat. Let's go. Did you make it? Ming could hear the nervousness in his voice. His uninjured hand was holding Lily. His palm was sweating. Lily smiled and gently patted his hand to comfort him. Yes, she replied. Yes. Did my mother say anything? She said that if I could do it, she would do it for me. She went to buy the fruits. When he heard that, Ming's tense mood immediately relaxed. With a chuckle, he lowered his voice and said, My mother is used to living a carefree life. She hates cooking. If it weren't for the holidays and the servants going home early, she probably wouldn't cook. More importantly, Xiao Ziqing's cooking was terrible, but Ming couldn't reveal his mother's secret. I see, Ming said. It was no wonder that Xiao Ziqing didn't stand on ceremony and let Lily take over. But this was also an opening for her to change Xiao Ziqing's opinion of her. She had to do this more often in the future. She led Ming to the dining room. Huijin and Xiao Ziqing were already seated. When he saw them, Huijin said, You're here. Yeah, Lily responded and pulled out the stool opposite Xiao Ziqing. After Ming sat down, she went to wash her hands and took a wet napkin to wipe his hands. It was a small detail that Xiao Ziqing and Huijin noticed. The couple picked up their chopsticks almost at the same time. Huijin said, Let's eat. It's a little late today, so don't eat too much. We'll take a walk later before going back to the room. Of course, she was referring to Ming. Lily nodded her head naturally. She didn't think there was anything wrong with it and replied, Okay. Xiao Ziqing poured a bowl of soup for Ming and then lowered her head to eat. Ming's left hand was injured, but his right hand could still hold things by itself. Lily placed the bowl of soup in his hand and whispered, Be careful. It's a little hot. Don't spill it. Ming finished the soup in a few gulps. Did you make eggplant? I want to eat eggplant. All right. Xiao Ziqing took a bite of food and subconsciously looked at Huijin. Xiao Ziqing noticed that her husband looked equally surprised, so she lowered her head. I didn't expect it to taste so good. Compared to what she did, it was still a little lacking. Lily didn't notice the subtle changes in their expressions. She was too embarrassed to take the food and didn't dare speak. Even when she spoke to Ming, she kept her voice low. With such a wealthy family, be very cautious about the rules of not talking during meals or sleeping. Chapter 1147. Lily obediently fed Ming and ate a little at the same time. Huijin and Xiao Ziqing were both full. Xiao Ziqing wanted to come over and ask Lily to eat, but Lily politely declined. After the meal was finally over, Lily led Ming to the sofa to sit down. After cleaning up the dishes, she turned around and took Ming out for a walk. It was late, and the wind was strong. Huijin and Xiao Ziqing lived in a villa that was rarely seen in the city. The surrounding area was bustling, and there were many people walking around at this hour. It wasn't quiet. After walking around with Lily, Ming felt a little sleepy. He hadn't slept well for the past few days. Dark circles had formed under his eyes. When he heard Lily yawn, Ming said, "Let's go back." Okay. However, there was no lack of neighbors who knew Ming. A middle-aged man about the same age as Huijin saw Ming and walked up to him in surprise. Xiao O. When Ming heard the voice, he recognized the person who was speaking. He called out, "Uncle Zhao." When Uncle Zhao heard Ming's response, he finally dared to walk up and yelled, "I thought I got the wrong person. I heard that you were in a car accident recently. I didn't expect you to be so badly hurt." Uncle Zhao shook his head and walked up to Ming. "Lilo, what's wrong with your eyes?" If there was one thing that Ming was most concerned about and regretful about during this trip, it would be his eyes. Lily was afraid that he was in a bad mood, so she quickly pulled him over and said, "Ming is injured. He can't see for the time being, but it's not a big problem." When Lily said that, Uncle Zhao finally noticed her. When he saw her face, he felt very comfortable and asked, "You are?" "She's my fiancée. She's here to take care of me," Ming said. "Fiancée." Lily couldn't help but look up at him when she heard those three completely unfamiliar words. Her heart suddenly raced. Even if she had 10 hearts, she would never have expected Ming to say that. Fiancé. Only when both parties' parents agree and they are engaged can they be called fiancés. What kind of fiancé is that? But in front of an outsider, in front of an elder, Ming actually said such words, which made Lily feel a little happy in the bottom of her heart. Had this man already started to take action? Uncle Zhao was also a smart person. Of course, he recognized Shinmanting. Her face and figure were completely different from Shinmanting's. But when he heard this, he didn't say anything. He nodded and said, "So that's how it is. Yes, I'll invite you to my wedding." Although his eyes were empty, he seemed to be in good spirits. He said, "Uncle Zhao, if there's nothing else, we'll leave first." "Okay." Uncle Zhao responded and then watched them leave. However, as he watched them leave, he seemed to be deep in thought. What the hell? Isn't that fella's mistress? How did she become my fiancée? After bringing Ming back, Xiao Ziqing and Huijin were both sitting in the living room in their pajamas. Seeing that they had returned, Xiao Ziqing immediately came up to them and said, "Why are you so late? You have to pay attention to your rest. Next time, don't come back so late." Chapter 1148. That won't do. How can you shower now? The doctor said that your wound hasn't healed yet. It's already very difficult to discharge you. Don't be stubborn. Xiao Ziqing nagged. She had already pushed Lily aside and was helping her son up the stairs. Lily followed behind and heard Ming say, "It's fine. Lily can help me clean myself. Mom, don't worry about me. Go to sleep." "You." Xiao Ziqing seemed to disagree. She turned her back to Lily and had no intention of avoiding her words. "She's a lady cleaning your body. What's that? No matter how good your relationship with her is, she's still an outsider. Can't you be more understanding?" Outsider. She was indeed an outsider, but Lily still didn't feel comfortable being called out so loudly. "She's my woman. How is she an outsider?" Ming retorted. "Mom, don't worry about it." With that, he raised his voice and said, "Lily, come here." Lily quickly walked over to Ming's side and said, "I'm here. Take me upstairs. After I shower, will sleep. I'll do it. Xiao Ziqing held onto O Ming's hand and refused to let go. She looked at Yu Lily with displeasure and said, although you have a close relationship, you're still an unmarried couple. What's the point of sleeping in the same room in your own house? Your room will be for your wife to live in the future. How can you let anyone else sleep in it? Yu Lily wasn't stupid. She knew that O Ming's mother was hinting at her. To put it more plainly, she was pointing out that Yu Lily would never marry O Ming, so she couldn't sleep in O Ming's room. She should give up on that idea. Even Yu Lily understood, and O Ming was even more aware of it. Awkward. Yu Lily felt that her current situation was as if she had stuck herself to it. That feeling made Yu Lily feel disgusted. Her heart tightened, and she spoke first. Auntie, O Ming, I didn't intend to stay here. I didn't even bring a change of clothes. I'll go back now. When she said that, it was Xiao Ziqing's turn to be embarrassed. Why did it sound like Xiao Ziqing was chasing her away? She just didn't want this woman to hang out with her son. Especially in her own home, Xiao Ziqing felt extremely uncomfortable at the thought of her son being involved with such a woman. But she hadn't thought of letting Yu Lily go. After all, she was the one who invited her to stay over, and she even prepared a guest room for her. However, Xiao Ziqing could not bring herself to explain herself. Due to her personality, Xiao Ziqing was not one to speak softly. Seeing her son's face darken, Xiao Ziqing felt guilty. O Ming looked a little lonely. He didn't say anything. He shook off Xiao Ziqing's hand and climbed up the stairs. It was better for him to leave. He didn't have to listen to his mother's words here, and he didn't have to come here to be humiliated. Let's go, let's go. O Ming pursed his lips. Even if he was blind, climbing the stairs of his house was no problem at all. Soon, he went up, turned left, found his room, and slammed the door shut. Yu Lily had already walked to the door. When she heard the sound of O Ming slamming the door, her heart felt as if it had been hit hard by him. Chapter 1149. By the time Yu Lily got home in a taxi, it was almost midnight. She took a shower. When she came out, her phone reminded her that it was the third day of the Lunar New Year. It was the most important time of the year and the most important time to be united, but she was still alone. Yu Lily lay on the bed on top of the quilt, her whole body spread out. Sleepiness hit her, and she was exhausted. But after closing her eyes for a while, she couldn't fall asleep. There were too many things in her head, and it was too messy. It was so messy that Yu Lily couldn't sort them out. Ding dong. The phone rang. Yu Lily stayed in bed for a long time before picking it up. It was a text from Shun Jilia. Happy New Year. Are you asleep? If not, call me back. Grandma missed you so much that I couldn't sleep. Yu Lily glanced at it and ignored him. After turning off the phone, she closed her eyes and lay in bed. Strangely enough, after reading the text, Yu Lily fell into a deep sleep. At 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, Yu Lily was awakened by the cold. She covered herself with the quilt and went back to sleep. When she woke up again, it was already past midnight. Yu Lily washed up and changed her clothes. She put on some light makeup and was about to go out. Just as she was putting on her shoes, the doorbell rang. Yu Lily wasn't in a hurry. She put on her shoes first and opened the door. But it was an unexpected guest. When old Mrs. Shun saw Yu Lily, a big smile appeared on her face. Her wrinkled face was full of childishness. She looked very amiable. Lily, old Mrs. Shun rushed toward Yu Lily and jumped like a child. Such a move didn't only scare Yu Lily. Shun Jilia, who was following behind, was even more shocked. He quickly reached out to help her. Yu Lily also rushed to catch the old lady. If anything happened to her, she would be responsible for everything that happened in the house. Fortunately, both of them were steady, and old Mrs. Shun was in a good position. The two young people were scared, but the old lady was laughing and in a good mood. Why are you here? Yu Lily felt strange and shouted angrily. You're so old, and you're still going around. Is it fun? The plane is flying back and forth. If something goes wrong, don't blame me. Old Mrs. Shun was stunned by the roar. She looked up at Yu Lily with a blank expression. Shun Jilia, who was standing behind, looked at Yu Lily as if he was looking at a hero. He gave Yu Lily a thumbs up in his heart. One had to know that this old man was old and had a mental problem, but in his family, he was highly respected. Old Mrs. Shun was like a tyrant in the house. Even Shun Longnue didn't dare to say anything harsh to her, let alone yell at her face to face. However, it was a good roar, a good roar. This roar was so satisfying, but it was estimated that Lily would also be miserable. This old lady was very vengeful. Later, she would use her poisonous tongue to scold Lily like an earthworm, wishing that she could drill into the ground. However, something unexpected happened. The old lady's face was full of grievance. She even looked at Lily pitifully. Shun Julia had lived for 27 years, but he had never seen the old lady like that. Chapter 1150. The old lady looked cautious and asked, "Lily, are you angry?" When Lily saw the old lady's expression, the anger and impatience in her heart immediately dissipated. Looking at the old lady, Lily felt helpless and said, "Old Mrs. Shun, you're getting on in years. It's better for you to stay at home. If anything happens, not only will you suffer, but your children and grandchildren will also be worried about you." "Are you worried about me?" Old Mrs. Shun's eyes were wide open. Her eyes were a little cloudy, but at that moment, they were filled with childish anticipation. Lily didn't know what to say for a moment. In all honesty, she was only worried that the old lady would cling to her again. If she couldn't leave, even if she scolded her, it would be troublesome. But who knew that the old lady would really take advantage of her? It was as if the old lady knew that Lily wouldn't be able to handle her. That made Lily angry and helpless. The old lady had come all the way to find her. She couldn't really scold her. When Shun Julia saw the helpless look on Lily's face, he quickly tried to smooth things over and said, "That's right, Grandma. Lily is just concerned about you. I told you not to run around. I knew that Lily would be upset." Lily said. When she heard Shun Julia's voice, Lily laughed in anger. Without any explanation, she slapped him on the arm and shouted, "Why didn't you tell me that you were coming?" If he had told her, she would have gone into hiding. This old lady was too annoying. Grandma said that it would be a surprise for you. Shun Julia hugged his arm and took a deep breath. "You hit me too hard. Didn't you know how to be gentler?" When Lily heard that, she was so angry that she slapped him again. "Fine, I'll be gentler, gentler, gentler." Every word was like a heavy slap to the face. Ouch, ouch, ouch. Shun Julia quickly dodged and hid behind the old lady. But in the end, he still felt guilty. He had been pestered by the old lady, which was why he had come to look for her. "It's your fault for not answering my calls or video calls. Grandma misses you so much that she talks about you every day." As Shun Julia spoke, he looked at Lily's face. His eyes darkened as he slowly said, "And I also want to see you." When Lily heard the last sentence, she lost all her confidence. Shun Julia seemed to have been dumped by her, right? "I'm so hungry. Shall we go eat?" Old Mrs. Shin acted as if she hadn't seen or heard their interaction. She touched her belly and said, "Old people can't stand hunger. Once they're hungry, they feel uncomfortable all over. Lily, let the youngest treat us to dinner." As she spoke, she came over and held Lily's hand affectionately. "After dinner, let's go to movies and go shopping, shall we?" Shun Julia felt his hair stand on end. Why did it feel a little horrifying coming from the old lady's mouth? "Have a meal, stroll the streets." The last time he said this, he was slapped in the face. Shun Julia felt a little resentful. He rubbed his arm, which was hurting from Lily's slap, and asked old Mrs. Shun, "Grandma, what do you want to eat?" Listen to Lily. Chapter 1151. I want to eat Thai food. Curry. Savadakar. Old Mrs. Shun shouted excitedly. She dragged Lily along and said, "Lily, do you like curry very much? Let's go eat curry together." Lily looked at Shun Julia strangely. Shun Julia shrugged and said, "Grandma likes curry very much. I didn't tell her that you like it. Look, Lily and I are really connected. Julia, lead the way. Let's go together." Old Mrs. Shun pulled Lily out. Lily quickly pushed her away and went inside to get her bag before they went out together. Lily hadn't turned on her phone since last night. As soon as she turned it on, messages and calls came in continuously. Holding it in her hand, the phone rang for several seconds before it stopped. Shin Julia, and old Mrs. Shin stared at her phone curiously. Lily clicked on it and found that several of them were Shun Julia's numbers. There were also two unfamiliar numbers from the capital. Needless to say, they must be old Mrs. Shun's. Then, there were O Ming's number, Xiao Ziqing's number, and the landline number in Kingstown. Needless to say, they were all from O Ming. Lily looked at the time. It was already 1 p.m. At this time, O Ming couldn't have eaten yet, could he? When the three of them got out of the elevator, Lily regretted her decision and said, "Why don't you go eat first? I have something urgent to deal with." As he spoke, he reached out and pulled the old lady out of the neighborhood. "There's a big shopping mall about a kilometer up ahead. There's a Thai restaurant there. Shun Julia, take your grandmother there." "I won't be going." "How can you do that? My grandmother came all the way to find you, and you're not even willing to have a meal with her?" Shun Julia looked angry and said, "You're too heartless." Lily felt a headache coming on and said, "I really have something to do. I was just about to go out to do that. Okay." Old Mrs. Shin looked a little regretful. She lowered her head and said, "Then go do what you need to do. Will you go home tonight?" "Yes." "As compensation, will you sleep with me tonight?" Old Mrs. Shun looked at Lily with a pair of cloudy old eyes and some expectations. When Lily saw the look in his eyes, she felt even more sorry for him. She could see that the old lady really liked her. She had called several times, and now she had come all the way from the capital to play with her. If she continued to ignore him, Lily wouldn't be able to live with herself. If she didn't eat with O Ming, he wouldn't be able to. Facing the expectant look in the old lady's eyes, Lily finally nodded her head and said, "All right, I'll see you tonight." The old lady was finally happy. With a smile on her face, she stretched out her finger to Lily and said, "Okay, then pinky swear with Grandma." Lily was surprised. How could this old lady be? But facing her expectant eyes, Lily still stuck out her finger. You have you. You." Shin smiled and said, "You, Lily. You. This is called taking a step back in order to advance. You see, I can be alone with her tonight." Chapter 1152. Shun Julia sympathized with Lily in his heart. When he turned his head and saw the expectant look on old Mrs. Shun's face, he suddenly felt a little strange. Could it be that Grandma has been lonely for so many years, and she wants to have a twilight romance with Lily? Is it really okay for an old cow to bite on young grass? Furthermore, both of them are women. Shun Julia suddenly felt a chill run down his spine, and his whole body trembled. What a pervert. Old Mrs. Shun had no idea what her grandson thought of her. All she could think about was what was going to happen that night. When Lily got into the taxi, she called O Ming. O Ming hung up the phone and didn't pick it up. Lily was stunned and dialed again. The second call was answered. O Ming picked up the phone and said, "I accidentally pressed the button just now." Lily understood and changed the subject. "Have you eaten yet?" "No. I'm waiting for you to eat with me." "Where are you?" O Ming's voice was low, and his tone was dependent. "Did you just wake up?" "Yeah. I accidentally overslept. I'm in the car now, and I'll be there soon." After thinking for a moment, she asked, "Did you shower last night?" "No." "Did you wipe yourself?" "No." "Why?" "I couldn't wring the towel out." O Ming's words carried a hint of grievance. Lily smiled at his pitiful words and asked, "Your mother didn't help you? I'm already an adult, and I still need my mother to help me shower. What'd I look like? Aren't you ashamed to let me shower?" Lily was clearly not convinced. "You're my woman. It's different." The words came out naturally. Lily's heart fluttered, and her lips curved up. "I'll hang up first. I'm almost there." "Okay." The car stopped very quickly. Lily paid the driver and got out. After she rang the doorbell, Xiao Ziqing opened the door. When she saw that it was Lily, Xiao Ziqing quietly let out a sigh of relief and rebuked. "Why are you only here now? What time is it?" Lily was a little unhappy when she heard that tone, but she pretended not to hear it. She called out, "Auntie." With that, she walked straight up the stairs. "Wait a minute. Have you eaten?" Xiao Ziqing asked. Lily stopped and turned her head to look at him. Xiao Ziqing came out of the kitchen with a tray and said, Oh Ming hasn't eaten yet. He's waiting for you to eat together, so I prepared food for two. Thank you, Auntie. Lily took it and headed upstairs. Xiao Ziqing had intended to say more, but seeing Lily in front of her, she had no choice but to swallow the words that were on the tip of her tongue. She felt a little dissatisfied. The door to Oh Ming's room was open. Oh Ming was sitting on the sofa next to the bed. In front of him was a table with a computer and a mobile phone. As soon as he entered, he heard the sound of the computer reading. Oh Ming's fingers flew over the keyboard, and at the same time, the computer played all the words he had typed. There wasn't a single typo in the entire row. Lily clicked her tongue and said, "It's time to eat." Oh Ming's hand stopped, and he turned his head. His eyes were still empty and lifeless. "Did my mom say anything to you?" "She asked me to bring food up to eat with you. That's all. That's it." "Is she supposed to say something to me?" Chapter 1153. Lily blinked her eyes. She suddenly recalled Xiao Ziqing's hesitant expression earlier. So this was what he wanted to say. "However, but I don't want to." She placed the tray on a nearby table and said, "Oh Ming, when your hand gets better, I won't be coming anymore." "Why?" "Your mother hates me." She had also made it clear last night that she could not accept Lily. Instead of facing her sarcasm and ridicule every day, it would be better to just not come anymore. She couldn't stand it. Oh Ming reached out with his uninjured hand. "Let's move out. Let's go back to my apartment. We'll live together. I can't take good care of you, Oh Ming." She didn't have that right now, and Xiao Ziqing wouldn't allow it. "I want to be with you, and no one can stop me." Oh Ming held his hand up, waiting for her to hold it. Looking at his hand, Lily gently pressed his hand down and said, "Let's eat." However, it was this small movement that made Oh Ming's heart suddenly turn cold. She did not hold his hand. Has it begun? She was impatient and disdainful. Had she thought it through? Did she not want to live with him? A blind man? Did she not want to marry a blind man? Oh Ming's heart felt like it was being crushed by a big stone. It was terribly heavy. Lily noticed the slight change in Oh Ming's mood, and her eyes darkened. She immediately picked up the bowl and chopsticks to feed him. Throughout the meal, neither of them spoke a word. After eating, Lily packed up the food and sent it to the kitchen to wash and dry. When she went upstairs, she found that the door was locked. Lily couldn't open the door and was stunned. She reached out and patted him, calling out tentatively, "Oh Ming." No response. Oh Ming leaned against the sofa and closed his eyes. He listened to the sounds coming from outside, indifferent. The knocking on the door became more and more urgent, and Lily's voice became more and more anxious. "Oh Ming, what are you doing inside? Open the door." When Oh Ming heard this, he suddenly felt that it was ridiculous. What did that mean? Afraid that he would die? Afraid that he would commit suicide? Laughing at himself, Oh Ming clearly felt that his eyes were wet and hot. In the eyes of others, he was so weak, so pitiful. Even if he was blind or disabled, as long as he wasn't dead, he wasn't finished. But why were all the people around her like this? His mother was like that, and so was Lily. All of them sympathized with him and treated him like a cripple. She was clearly so unwilling. So why did she still come? It was only because he was crippled and threatened them by not eating. That was all, right? Sadly, Oh Ming realized that apart from being disabled, he didn't have any other weapons. "Enough," Oh Ming said. His voice was not loud, but it was just loud enough for the people outside to hear. "You can go back. I'll rest for a while." Lily's heart ached. She knocked on the door again and panicked. "I'll accompany you. Can you open the door? Let's go back." Oh Ming's voice was even lower and hoarser. At the same time, there seemed to be a hint of a smile, but there was an indescribable sorrow in it. "I want to be alone for a while. Don't come. Don't ever come again." This way, he wouldn't feel uncomfortable, and he wouldn't be bullied and humiliated by his mother. He was too selfish. He never thought about her feelings. It won't happen again. Chapter 1154. Lily heard that something was wrong with Oh Ming. Her heart was squeezed tightly, and she couldn't breathe. Lily withdrew her hand and didn't knock on the door again. Looking at the door in front of her, Yu Lily took a step back and leaned against the railing on the second floor. Xiao Ziqing saw Yu Lily leaning against the railing and asked, "What's wrong?" Yu Lily turned her head and shook her head. Then a white light flashed in her mind, and she went forward to knock on the door and said, "Oh Ming, if you want me to leave, you have to let me pick up my things. My bag is still inside." When Oh Ming heard that, he fumbled for her bag on the sofa. Soon, he found it, picked up a shoulder strap, and groped his way to the door. His footsteps were not big, and every step was very slow. When he opened the door, Oh Ming reached out and was about to hand her the bag, but no one reached out to take it. Yu Lily looked at his empty eyes, and her eyes were sad. Yu Lily stepped forward and wrapped her arms around his waist. Oh Ming was shocked. Obviously, he didn't expect that Yu Lily would do such a thing. "What's wrong? You just finished eating, and you have to be in a good mood. How can you be so bad?" Yu Lily gently leaned on his chest, and her voice softened. "You didn't take a bath or wipe yourself yesterday. I'll help you take a bath and wipe yourself. Okay?" Her voice was soft, and every word was extremely gentle. But this was not Yu Lily. His little carp would not talk to him in such a tone as if she was coaxing a child, and she would not be so inexplicably gentle to him. That was the difference. Their attitudes clearly told him this cruel fact. He was disabled. Gently pushing her away, Oh Ming said without any expression, "Go back." As he spoke, he handed Yu Lily's bag forward and said, "I'm sleepy, and I want to sleep. Didn't you sleep well last night?" Yu Lily did not let go and gently pushed him in. "I'll go with you." I said no. Oh Ming's tone suddenly changed, and there was impatience in his anger. "Are you going or not?" Yu Lily was stunned by his roar. Looking at him, she couldn't believe it. "Oh Ming, do you really want me to go?" "Let's go." Another shout rang out. Indistinctly, anger surged. Yu Lily pursed her lips and looked at him. Her breathing gradually became faster. She took the bag from his hand and said in a low voice, "I got it. I'll leave now." Oh Ming's heart was in so much pain that he was hysterical. It was as if someone had taken a knife and pried it open. Blood gushed out violently, and everything inside was blurred by the blood. Oh Ming took a step forward, but he quickly stopped. Yu Lily didn't notice his subtle movements. She turned her body slightly and said, "I'll come again when you're in a better mood." After entering the room, he slammed the door fiercely, making a loud noise. Sorrow, accompanied by such a loud noise, came surging. Tears welled up in her eyes, blurring everything. Yu Lily opened her mouth and stopped walking. Her body fell against the wall, and she whimpered. Oh Ming closed the door and locked it. When he turned around, it was still dark. There was no change at all. Chapter 1155. Xiao Ziqing's attention was soon attracted by the low sobbing sounds upstairs. Xiao Ziqing heard the noise and walked over. When Yu Lily heard the movement, she quickly wiped her face and stood up. Xiao Ziqing happened to see Yu Lily squatting by the wall and sobbing. She looked at her face, which had turned pink from all the crying, and frowned. "What's wrong? Why are you crying?" "I'm fine." Yu Lily wiped her face and forced a smile. "Auntie, Oh Ming might not be in a good mood. Can I stay here? Stay outside?" Xiao Ziqing frowned. When she saw Yu Lily's request, she felt even more uncomfortable. What did that mean? Can I stay here? Does that mean that Yu Lily is worried that I won't even let her stay in the corner? Xiao Ziqing understood what was going on and felt extremely displeased. Xiao Ziqing gave Yu Lily a look. She didn't object or agree. She walked toward Oh Ming's room. He gently knocked on the door and shouted, "Son, are you inside? Open the door." There was no immediate response from inside. Yu Lily was also looking forward to the person inside to reply. After about 10 seconds, Oh Ming said, "Mom, I'll be alone for a while. Don't come in." "Are you in a bad mood? Why don't you tell Mommy about it? Maybe she'll be in a better mood?" Xiao Ziqing was clearly unwilling to give up. One had to know that she had scolded this woman several times. Every time, she didn't get any benefit from it. But now, Oh Ming could make this stubborn girl cry like this. What had he done? Furthermore, Oh Ming was usually so protective of this woman. How could he bear to let her cry like this? There's something wrong with him. "It's okay. I'm tired. I'm going to sleep," Oh Ming said. His voice was a little gloomy. Other than being in a bad mood, there was no other emotion in his voice. When Xiao Ziqing heard that, she had no choice but to give up. She turned to look at Yulili and said, "Come down and talk." Yulili looked at Xiao Ziqing and felt a little uneasy. When they went downstairs, Xiao Ziqing made a cup of tea for Yulili and asked, "Did you quarrel with Oming?" She took the tea and shook her head. "What's going on?" Yulili also wanted to ask what was going on. Even Yulili couldn't figure out why Oming had suddenly treated her that way. The tears that she had suppressed with great difficulty suddenly gushed out again. Yulili took a deep breath and tried to make herself look refreshed. She said, "It's probably because Oming wants to be alone for a while. He's in a bad mood, but thankfully he just finished eating." When Xiao Ziqing saw Yulili in this state, no matter how much she disliked her, she couldn't help feeling a little sad. She looked at Yulili with disdain and said, "Why are you crying when you're so ugly? My son isn't dead yet. Since my son has chased you out, you should go back first. When he comes looking for you again, I'll call you over." Yulili looked at Xiao Ziqing and said, "What are you crying for when you're so ugly?" When Yulili heard that, she panicked and said, "Auntie, Oming is only temporarily in a bad mood. He'll be fine when he's in a better mood. Can I sit here for a while?" Xiao Ziqing didn't say anything. Yulili quickly added, "If you think I'm taking up space, I can go to Oming's door. That way, I can hear him whenever he calls out to me." Chapter 1156. Yulili quickly got up and went to Oming's door without even taking a sip of tea. Xiao Ziqing just glanced at her and went out on her own. However, Yulili stayed there for more than an hour. During this time, Oming didn't come out. Yulili stood at the door, her mind blank. Suddenly, her phone vibrated and rang. It was a text message. Yulili opened the text message. It was from Oming. A text message from Oming? A string of numbers. 9854549636336746822. What does it mean? Yulili looked at it for a long time, but she didn't know what it meant. She called Oming. Through the door, she heard the ringtone. It was very soft. Yulili listened to the ringtone, waiting for Oming to pick up. But no matter how many times she called, Oming didn't pick up. Feeling a little frustrated, Yulili stood in the same place and didn't move. All of a sudden, the door opened. Yulili was happy. She was about to go up and call him, but then she immediately shut her mouth and didn't dare to move. What does he want to do? Oming walked out and shouted, "Mom, next time Yulili comes, don't let her in." Yulili's heart jumped when she heard that. What does Oming mean? Don't let her in? Then who was it that had been sticking to her these past few days, wanting her to accompany him? Oming didn't seem to notice that there was another person not far away. He shouted, "Mom, are you there?" No one answered. Oming turned and walked back in. Just as he was about to close the door, Yulili went up and pushed the door open. Oming paused and said, "You haven't left yet. Why? What do you mean by asking your mom not to let me in? Didn't you hear it? Why are you asking?" Oming pretended to close the door. Although his eyes were empty and his arm was in a cast, his strength was no less than Yulili's. "Why, Oming, what do you mean? I just sent you a message. Didn't you see it?" A message? Yulili was stunned and thought of the pile of numbers. It was highly likely that Oming had pressed the wrong key and changed the keyboard to numeric. Oming responded calmly. He didn't feel that anything was wrong. Yulili didn't dare say that he had actually sent a bunch of numbers. She played dumb and said, "I didn't look at it. I'll check it out later." Oming was used to typing 9 on his phone's keyboard. Yulili only needed to type the numbers to know what they meant. "Then you can go back first." Oming slammed the door hard, but he couldn't close it. Yulili used all her strength to resist and shouted, "Why are you chasing me away? Did I do something wrong?" "You didn't do anything wrong. I was the one who was wrong," Oming thought to himself, but he couldn't say it out loud. "Or, did I say something that made you unhappy? Tell me, okay? Why are you suddenly in a bad mood? Why are you suddenly chasing me away? Oming, you're already like this. Don't be angry with me, okay? What do you mean I'm already like this?" Oming loosened his grip, and his face darkened. "I'm disabled and blind, So I don't even have the right to be angry, right? No, Lily said. Then what do you mean? Do you think that I should beg you to be with me? I don't care. Lily, go away. I don't want to see or hear you. Ming's face was only gloomy and emotionless. Lily looked at him and knew that his mood must be terrible. Otherwise, he wouldn't have said such things. Chapter 11:57. Lily stopped moving, but she did not retreat. Looking at Ming in front of her, Lily's eyes were filled with compassion and regret that Ming couldn't see. Ming, it's not that you beg me to be with you, but that I can't leave you. Have you forgotten what I said? I must marry you, and you must marry me. Isn't that right? Lily took a step forward and grabbed his hand. In her voice, there was a bit of pleading. You promise me. Do you want to break your promise now? I know you're in a bad mood, but don't say such things in the future, okay? Although she knew that he was unhappy because of his misfortune, hearing such words still made Lily's heart hurt. It hurt a lot. Such a feeling was more hurtful than any of Qiao Ziqing's words. The pain of a lover was far deeper, more turbulent, and more painful than that of an unrelated person. Ming clearly felt the emotions coming from Lily. He held her with his hand, and his chest was slightly trembling. Why would he want to say something like that? But when he thought of the possibility that he would never recover his eyesight, and Qiao Ziqing's deep misunderstanding of him and Lily, Ming's heart was indescribably sad. Ming pushed her away with a backhand. He didn't say anything, but his hand was very strong. Lily was caught off guard when she was pushed. He slammed the door shut and locked it from the inside. Ming, open the door. Lily was inexplicably flustered. Everything was fine just now. What suddenly happened? Didn't he eat when they first arrived? Why did he suddenly change? Lily slammed the door and shouted, Ming, open the door. Tell me clearly, what do you mean? Does it mean that he doesn't want to marry me? Does it mean that he doesn't want to answer? Why didn't he say it clearly? Lily didn't understand, but looking at the tightly closed door in front of her, the panic in her heart became more and more rampant. Go and check the message. In the future, let's not see each other. Ming's words came through the door. It was muffled but very clear. Lily heard his words clearly. She quickly picked up the phone and looked at the string of numbers. She typed it out according to the numbers. 9-key pinyin 98545496363363367468222 after Lily punched out. Her heart was even more shocked. Lily, let's break up. Cinder, bitcho, go take a look at the messages. In the future, let's not meet again. What Ming had just said rang in her mind. Lily held the phone and looked at the words that automatically came to mind. She couldn't believe it. How could this be? How could this be? Ming told her to break up. How could this be? How could this be? Ming, what do you mean by this? I don't understand. Open the door and explain it to me. Open the door? What do you mean? Ming, what do you mean by this? Come out and explain it to me. Open the door. Open the door. Ming's voice trembled a little, and he slammed the door even harder. However, no matter how hard she shouted or how loud she shouted, the person inside did not move. Ming sat on the ground and leaned against the wall. He could clearly feel the coldness from his back. Chapter 11:58. She saw it, and she understood it. That's all right. Ming got up from the ground, walked to the bed, and slowly sat down. Outside, Lily's voice was getting louder and louder. At the same time, it was getting crazier and more hysterical. In the end, the sound of Lily hitting the door was getting softer and softer, and the original voice had collapsed into sobs. Ming leaned against the bed and bit his lower lip, trying not to make sound. Tears flowed down from the corner of his eyes, and the salty taste, with the smell of weakness, was so strong that it was embarrassing. That's it. Ming's head was getting dizzier, and he fell asleep on the bed. Even Ming himself didn't know how long he had been sleeping. Because he couldn't see, he couldn't even tell the difference between day and night. Standing up, Ming felt a throbbing pain in his arm. Gently stroking it, Ming stood up and opened the door. Outside, it was quiet. Lily was gone. In order to be able to see Lily at any time, Shun Juliet took the old lady to a coffee shop downstairs in the neighborhood where Eulalie lived. People could be seen coming and going at any time. Kingstown was a first-tier city. Basically, at this time of the year, the whole city could be called an empty city. Old Mrs. Shin leaned on the table and stared outside, for fear of missing Eulalie's arrival. Shun Juliet sat opposite the old lady, playing a game on his phone. The killing game kept coming, and Shun Juliet was very excited. Suddenly, the old lady stood up and shouted, "Lily! Lily is back!" With that, she didn't give Shun Juliet any time to recover from his shock. She quickly ran out of the room. Shun Juliet quickly turned off the game, caught up with her, and shouted, "Grandma, Lily won't come back at this time. You better sit here quietly. When Lily comes back, maybe she'll think you've done a good job and spend more time with you alone." However, Shun Juliet's words didn't work. The old lady walked faster, like an old child, and happily shouted, "Lily, you're back?" Eulalie hadn't expected the old lady to appear in front of her so quickly. She rubbed her eyes and tried her best to look natural as she asked, "Old Mrs. Shun, what are you doing here?" When old Mrs. Shun heard this form of address, she was unhappy and said, "What old lady? Can you call me Grandma? I've been waiting for you here for a long time. Shall we go eat Thai food now? You guys didn't eat lunch?" "No," Shun Julia replied. He sounded a little helpless. "Grandma said that she had to wait for you to go with her. So, we settled around here the afternoon." As he spoke, he noticed that Eulalie's eyes were visibly red and swollen. Shun Julia wasn't the only one who saw through it. Even old Mrs. Shun, who had always behaved like a child in front of Eulalie, acted as if she hadn't seen it. She walked up to Eulalie affectionately and took her arm. "Shall we go now?" Old Mrs. Shun was pleasantly surprised. He knew Eulalie would come back, but he didn't know it would be so early. But at the same time, he did not expect Eulalie to come back in such a state. The old man's heart ached. After all, she had lived for decades. Old Mrs. Shun could roughly guess the reason for Eulalie's current state. Chapter 1159. Eulalie nodded as the old lady held her arm affectionately. His red and swollen eyes looked a little miserable at this moment. Eulalie reached out to press her eyes, but old Mrs. Shun pulled her hand away. She rebuked, "You can't rub your eyes if they are uncomfortable. The more you rub them, the more uncomfortable they will be. It's better to wear glasses when the wind is strong." As he spoke, he slowly stretched out his hand towards Shun Julia and said, "Old man, glasses." Shun Julia hurriedly took out a pair of sunglasses from the bag he was carrying, arched his back, and jumped onto it with small steps. In a shrill voice, he said, "Your Highness, the glasses have arrived." His appearance was extremely comical. Old Mrs. Shun laughed and took the glasses. When she looked at Eulalie, she realized that she wasn't smiling like she was. "Here, this is for you." Old Mrs. Shun pushed it toward Eulalie. "Put on. It'll protect you from the wind." Eulalie's heart warmed. She didn't even have to look to know that her eyes were swollen. She didn't stand on ceremony. She took the glasses from old Mrs. Shun and thanked her before leading old Mrs. Shun and Shun Julia toward the mall ahead. When they arrived at the Thai restaurant, a girl in traditional Thai clothes came out to welcome the guests. She put her palms together and said to them, "Savadika." Old Mrs. Shun also bowed to her and said, "Sawadika." Even the waitress couldn't help but laugh as she led them into a private room. After ordering, old Mrs. Shun looked a little excited. She looked at Eulalie and said, "Lily, this is the first time I've been to a Thai restaurant in Kingstown. I heard that Kingstown is close to Thailand. Why don't we go to Thailand together?" When Shun Julia heard that, he couldn't help but make things difficult for her. He coughed lightly and said, "Grandma, we didn't bring our passports. Ask your brother to send it over. The delivery service is not open." When the old lady heard that, she was displeased. She turned to glare at Shun Julia and said, "Go back and get it. I'll wait for you in Kingstown." "That's not a good idea. You'll fall apart if you keep running around," Shun Julia exclaimed. "I don't care. In any case, I'm going to Thailand with Lily. Hurry up and give me my passport." Old Mrs. Shun had her arms akimbo. She was being unreasonable. "Who asked you to be my grandson?" Shun Julia was speechless. Are you sure this isn't a curse? But when he thought about it carefully, it didn't seem to be wrong. Shun Julia frowned, but when he turned his head, he saw that Eulily's lips were slightly raised. Shun Julia felt slightly relieved, but then he said unhappily, "Even if I'm your grandson, you can't mistreat me like this. Am I still your biological son? I didn't give birth to you in the first place." The old lady didn't find anything wrong with that. She looked at Eulily and asked, "Lily, do you want to go?" If they went, the youngest would go to the capital. The journey there would take 3 hours, and the round trip would only take 6 hours. Even if he takes 3 hours to travel to and from the airport, that's only 9 hours. It's 4 o'clock in the afternoon now, so he should be back by midnight. When Shinjulia heard that, he exploded and yelled, "Grandma, my dear grandma, are you trying to kill your grandson? What, you don't want to go?" I don't want to, of course I don't. Such an arduous task was not something that just anyone could accomplish. But Chapter 1160. It doesn't matter. Leave it to me. You can go. Eulily's lips curled up slightly, but her sunglasses were still on. Seeing the smile on Eulily's face, Shun Julia and old Mrs. Shun both breathed a sigh of relief. Shun Julia immediately pretended to be unhappy and shouted, "Hey, my grandmother is bullying me, and you're bullying me too, right? What?" Old Mrs. Shun glared at him. "Call me Eulily." Shun Julia turned his head and shrank his neck when he heard the old lady's words. He picked up his glass and took a sip. Seeing Shun Julia's behavior, Eulily's smile became even wider. An indescribable feeling spread through her. Her heart felt warm, but also felt like a feather was gently tickling it. It was so comfortable that she couldn't help but want to reject it. This was the first time she had eaten with someone other than Ming and her colleagues, especially on such a special day. It was a wonderful feeling. The dishes were quickly served, and old Mrs. Shun quickly began to eat. Although old Mrs. Shun was not young, her appetite was still very good. Eulily had eaten not long ago, but she didn't eat much. Shun Julia had also eaten most of the food for old Mrs. Shun. This was after Shun Julia had stopped her several times. Otherwise, Eulily would have suspected that the old lady would have eaten even more. After eating, Shun Julia paid the bill. Old Mrs. Shun had accidentally eaten too much and needed a walk to digest her food. She took Eulily with her and walked around the mall. Big malls didn't close during the New Year, so there was still a lot of things to shop. However, the New Year still had the atmosphere of the New Year. The same song, Winter Jasmine, was played everywhere. As he walked with the old lady, she became more and more interested in the song. She even shouted at the top of her lungs, "Love a winter jasmine. Flowers bloom everywhere." Many shop assistants looked over, and Shun Julia quickly hid in the side. Eulily was pulled by the old lady and shouted at the top of her lungs. As she walked, she turned to look at Eulily with a big smile on her face. Shun Julia covered his face and hid in the side. When he looked over, he found that Eulily was also smiling at his grandmother. It seemed that she was no longer as impatient as she was at noon. Shun Julia's heart calmed down a little, and there was a look of relief in his eyes. Although he didn't know why his grandmother liked Eulily so much, he had to admit that Eulily was a very good girl. It was a pity for such a girl to be with a scumbag like Ming. Old Mrs. Shun sang loudly all the way. Many people watched her as she pulled Eulily along. Suddenly, the old lady stopped and turned to look at Shun Julia. She shouted, "Shun Julia, why are you hiding so far away? Is it embarrassing for Grandma?" Shun Julia was stunned. He quickly covered his face as everyone looked at him. He groaned in his heart. "Oh my God." "Just call him, but don't call him by his name, okay? His illustrious name." Shun Julia smiled sheepishly and said, "I'm paving the way, paving the way." With that, he ran off like a wisp of smoke. Old Mrs. Shun glared at him. She grabbed Eulily's hand and chased after Shun Julia. She shouted, "Stop right there." Chapter 1161. When old Mrs. Shun heard that, she felt a little proud. When she turned to look at Eulily, her eyes were full of pride. Am I very powerful? Lily pursed her lips and nodded. Very powerful. Old Mrs. Shun was even more proud. She laughed and chased after Shunjilia. Shunjilia, who was in front, was secretly shocked. He shouted, "Grandma, slow down. Do you want to die?" When old Mrs. Shun heard that, she was unhappy and shouted, "What do you mean?" Shunjilia cried bitterly in his heart, and his expression immediately changed. With an apologetic look on his face, he stepped forward and said, "Grandma, I was wrong." Old Mrs. Shun glared at him and reached out to pull his ear up. "What did you do wrong?" "Everything is wrong." Shunjilia admitted defeat. Especially after seeing Lily's faint smile, he became even more terrified. He cried out in pain, "It hurts, it hurts." More and more people were watching. Shunjilia covered his face in shame. Grandma, let's go. I'll take you somewhere else to play." Lily removed old Mrs. Shun's hand. After helping Shunjilia out, she took the old lady's hand and walked forward. When old Mrs. Shun heard that, she was very happy. She nodded and took Lily's arm affectionately. She strode forward. Just like that, a few hours passed. Although old Mrs. Shun was physically strong, she was old. At about 7 or 8 o'clock, Shunjilia forced the old lady to go back. Naturally, the old lady was very reluctant. In the end, Lily persuaded her to go back. Shunjilia and the old lady took Lily to the hotel. It was a famous 5-star hotel in Kingstown. Shunjilia had booked a suite with 2 rooms. Just as Shunjilia asked the old lady to take a shower, old Mrs. Shun seemed to be afraid that Lily would go back on her word. She hugged Lily's arm and said with a pair of old eyes, "Lily, you said you would sleep with me tonight." Lily smiled and said, "Well, I won't go back on my word." Old Mrs. Shun was relieved and went to take a shower. However, Lily didn't bring any clothes. She was temporarily wearing a hotel bathrobe. When he came out, the old lady was sitting on the bed, holding a tablet and playing a popular game. It was simple, yet not so simple, comparable to Tetris. Lily leaned over to take a look. Old Mrs. Shun extended the tablet toward her and said, "Come on, let's play together." Lily chuckled and pushed it back. She looked at old Mrs. Shun, deliberated over her words, and said, "Actually, Grandma, I wanted to ask you from the very beginning. Can you answer this question for me?" "What?" Old Mrs. Shun lowered her head and blinked at Lily. Lily felt that the old man was a little cute and asked, "Why do you like me so much? My attitude toward you has never been very friendly. You saved me," old Mrs. Shun said without hesitation. She looked at Lily and said mysteriously, "To tell you the truth, I can see a person's fortune." Luck. Chapter 1162. Ever since our old man died, I feel like I've become half a god. When I look at others, if I get along well with them, I can see a layer of fog above their heads. As old Mrs. Shun spoke, she looked at the top of Lily's head. Above everyone's head, there will be a ball of luck that belongs to them. Within this ball of luck, there will be bad luck, good luck, and bad luck. There will always be many storms in one's life, and only in the end can one comfortably welcome the rainbow. Old Mrs. Shun had a smile on her face, but at that moment, she looked different from how she had looked during the day. She was kind, and the wrinkles on her face folded up. She reached out and gently patted her hand. "From the first time I saw you, I knew that you were destined to be with me. Lily, your luck compliments mine. When I first saw you, I felt that you were very likely to be my long-lost granddaughter." Lily blushed with shame. She smiled and asked, "Isn't it shinmanting that child was also destined to be with our family? As for what kind of fate, I couldn't tell, so I simply brought her home. Who knew she would have such a fate with Shinlu Owen? What a sin." Although that was what she said, old Mrs. Shin wasn't really that angry. She had expected it, so it was normal for there to be some discrepancies. The Shun family was also a prestigious family in the capital. Shinmanting was an orphan. Given such an opportunity to climb the social ladder, she did not hesitate to follow her and even became friends with her. She had thought that Lily would be easy to deal with. Who knew that this girl would hate her so much? Lily's attitude was far beyond old Mrs. Shun's expectations. Her desire to bring her home was aroused. However, it was also during this time that she became more aware of Yu Lily's extraordinary qualities. This girl's life was like a spring. The more pain she could endure, the more happiness she could obtain. The more she was suppressed now, the more she would rebound in the future. In the past, her life was cheap, and in the future, it would be priceless. I don't match your lost granddaughter's age. I don't think It can't be that granddaughter, right? Rumor had it that old Mrs. Shun was very harsh toward Yi Qianqian's younger sister. If she really became their granddaughter, would she? Old Mrs. Shun didn't notice Yu Lily's worry. She patted her hand and said, "You and I are fated. Regardless of whether we are related by blood or not, I am willing to be friends with you." As she spoke, she quietly looked around and whispered, "Lily, what do you think of our grandson?" This grandson was, of course, referring to Shun Jilya. Yu Lily was speechless. Thinking of Shun Jilya's sloppy appearance, she shook her head and said, "Grandma, don't try to match me up. I'm not interested in Shun Jilya." "What a pity." Old Mrs. Shun patted her hand. "I really don't know what's so good about that old guy." "You like him, and my disappointing granddaughter insisted on marrying him. Now, I heard that he got into a car accident. What's the situation now?" Hearing that, Yu Lily's eyes dimmed slightly. "Is it serious?" When he saw Yu Lily in the afternoon, she seemed to be crying a lot. From the look of it, he could tell that Ken was seriously injured. Chapter 1163. After old Mrs. Shun said that, she felt like she had asked too many questions. She couldn't even see. Of course, it was serious. It will all pass. That boy is also a blessed man. Yu Lily forced a smile and didn't say anything. The old lady had played the whole day and taken a plane here. She was already very tired. At that moment, she didn't talk to Yu Lily and fell asleep unknowingly. The old lady had a regular schedule. She woke up at 6 o'clock in the morning. When she woke up, Yu Lily was sleeping soundly. Her face was buried under her arms, and her hair covered most of her face. The old lady turned to look at Yu Lily. She looked at Yu Lily's slightly curled up sleeping position. At that moment, she was curled up in the corner of the bed, looking like a child who lacked a sense of security. It was also at that moment that the old lady strongly remembered that she was an orphan who grew up without parents, an orphan who was abandoned when she was born, an orphan who couldn't find her parents. The feeling of loneliness could be felt from her sleeping position. The old lady had never been an emotional person, but at that moment, when she felt this inexplicable atmosphere, she couldn't help but feel a lump in her throat. The old lady looked at Yu Lily for a while. Suddenly, she opened her eyes with a thump. Seeing that old Mrs. Shun was looking at her, Yu Lily remembered where she was. She smiled and said, "Grandma, good morning." "Morning. Did you have a nightmare?" Old Mrs. Shun looked at her kindly. When she saw the tears on her face, her heart ached even more. She reached out and patted her gently on the arm with a slight smile on her face. Yu Lily smiled and wiped the tears on her face. She climbed up and said, "Sort of." Yu Lily's eyes looked much more swollen than yesterday. Coupled with the dried water stains on her face, it wasn't difficult to imagine what kind of dream she had. "What sad dream did you have? Tell me about it." Old Mrs. Shun's voice was soft and slow. It sounded full of love. At the same time, her old and dry hand had already gently touched the ends of Yu Lily's hair. The old lady in front of her was obviously old. Her back was slightly bent, and her face was layered with wrinkles. But at that moment, she gave Yu Lily the warmth of an elder that she had never felt before. Other than Ming, this was the first person who had spoken to her like this. Yu Lily felt a surge of anger in her chest, and she couldn't control it. Her throat was choked with pain, and tears flowed down. "What's wrong?" Old Mrs. Shun frowned and looked at Yu Lily with sadness in her eyes. Yu Lily couldn't help but burst into tears. She gently hugged the old man and smelled the unique smell of the old man's metabolism. A place in her heart that had been empty for many years suddenly seemed to be filled. Yu Lily was sobbing uncontrollably. Old Mrs. Shin stopped asking. She hugged her gently and gave her silent comfort. "Thank you, Grandma. Did Ming bully you?" Old Mrs. Shun patted Yi Chanchan's back gently and said softly, "It just so happens that Grandma hasn't visited them in a long time. Why don't you take Grandma over there and have a seat? Go to the O clan?" Chapter 1164. Settle Accounts. When Lily heard those two words, her heart warmed again. This was the first time, other than Ming, that someone had said something like that. After being bullied outside, someone came back and said they would help you get revenge and settle accounts. What kind of relationship was that? Family? Family? None of them. But why was this old lady so nice to her? Was it just because she liked her? Lily found it a little strange. When she heard that, she nodded her head. Coincidentally, she was going to look for Ming. If she went alone, Xiao Ziqing wouldn't even let her in. If she brought along the old lady who used to be their in-law, the outcome might be different. When the old lady saw that she had agreed, she was immediately happy. She got up and went to the bathroom to freshen up. Then, they were ready to set off. When everything was ready, it was only a little after 7 o'clock. Shun Julia was still sleeping. Just as Lily was thinking about whether or not to wake him up, the old lady gave her a look to tell her not to. It was 8 o'clock in the morning when they arrived at the O residence. It was old Mrs. Shun who rang the doorbell. Lily hid in the corner, afraid that Xiao Ziqing wouldn't open the door if she saw her through the peephole. However, it wasn't Xiao Ziqing who opened the door. It was Huijin. When Huijin saw old Mrs. Shun, he was very surprised. He called out, "In-law Grandma, why are you here?" In-law Grandma. That was obviously a form of address that had been used since before. It hadn't changed. Old Mrs. Shun nodded her head and said, "I brought my granddaughter here to take a look." As she spoke, she looked at Huijin and asked, "May I come in?" Huijin quickly moved aside and said, "Please come in quickly. The weather is a little cold today. Why aren't you wearing more clothes? Your granddaughter is here too?" "My granddaughter, Shun Manting, is here too? The woman who caused the scandal with her brother? The ex-fiancée of my son?" "Yes, but she's not my biological granddaughter. I adopted her outside." Old Mrs. Shun looked at Huijin confidently. Huijin nodded his head. Shun Manting wasn't her biological granddaughter. Old Mrs. Shun had adopted her outside a few years ago. He wasn't the only one who knew that. Many people in the outside world knew. As he spoke, he looked behind the old lady and called out, "Manting is here too? Why don't you come in?" However, when old Mrs. Han heard Huijin shout, she felt unhappy and retorted, "Who told you it was Manting? I already said it wasn't her." Huijin felt a little awkward. If it wasn't Shun Manting, who could it be? Old Mrs. Shun snorted and looked back. She realized that Lily hadn't followed her in. That made old Mrs. Shun a little unhappy. She shouted, "Lily, what are you doing outside? Come on in." "Lily." When he said that, not only did Huijin feel a little surprised, but even Xiao Ziqing, who had just walked out, was amazed. He subconsciously looked at the door, and sure enough, he saw a familiar figure walking in. Lily. Lily didn't seem to be in a good state today. She only had light makeup on, but it still couldn't hide the red and swollen eyes. It seemed that he was in a much more sorry state than he was yesterday. Chapter 1165. Xiao Ziqing and her husband looked at each other and saw the confusion in each other's eyes. When did Lily become the granddaughter of the Shun family? They hadn't heard anything about it before. Furthermore, Xiao Ziqing had heard a little about how difficult the old lady was to deal with. She had even heard that she had some mental problems. Her mind was often muddled, and she was always spouting nonsense. Furthermore, her mood was erratic and unpredictable. If you made her unhappy in any way, the old lady would flip out at the drop of a hat. Even Shun Manting was often at a loss for what to do with the old lady's erratic personality. How did Lily end up with the old lady? Old Mrs. Shun ignored their astonishment. She turned around and walked over to Lily. She held her arm affectionately and walked toward the living room of the O residence with a smile. Xiao Ziqing was even more stunned when she saw the scene. In the 4 years that Shun Manting had been engaged to Ming, the old lady had come over once or twice, but she had always brought her granddaughter in with the attitude of an elder to discuss marriage and other matters. She was stingy with a smile, let alone holding Shun Manting's hand as they walked in. How? How did you Lily deal with this old lady? You Lily felt goosebumps rise under Qiao Ziqing's stare. She looked up and smiled sheepishly. The old lady didn't care. Under the gaze of Qiao Ziqing and Huijin, she swaggered over to the sofa and sat down. Sister Yang, bring me the Jin Jume tea that I brought back before the new year. Huijin shouted into the room. All right. Sister Yang quickly brought the tea over. The way she looked at you Lily was also a little strange. A few days ago, Sister Yang had been on leave and hadn't seen you Lily, but she was no stranger to the old lady. Now that she saw this unfamiliar granddaughter, she couldn't help but take a second look. Faced with all the strange gazes around her, you Lily felt like she was sitting on pins and needles. She felt a little uncomfortable. Everyone had their own thoughts. Qiao Ziqing sat down in front of them and handed old Mrs. Shun some snacks with a smile. She asked, "Why does Grandma have time to come over today? It's the new year. Is everything peaceful in the capital?" The implication was, your family still has a mess to deal with, so why did you come to my house? Old Mrs. Shun had lived for a long time. How could she not understand? She snorted and said, "I heard that your son got into a car accident, so I asked my granddaughter to bring me here to take a look. After all, we used to be in-laws. I don't want people to say that I'm cold. I came here just to hang out with Lily, but I didn't even stop by to take a look." When Qiao Ziqing heard that, she looked at you Lily even more. Is he here to look for you Lily? In that case, you Lily and the old lady had known each other for a long time. Could it be that you Lily was not an orphan, but was somehow related to the Shun family? She glanced at you Lily, then at the old lady. She nodded her head without changing her expression. "Thank you for your concern, my dear grandmother. Where's your son?" Chapter 1166. When you Lily heard that, she knew that the words were directed at her. Looking down at the table, you Lily subconsciously clasped her hands together. He's eating well and sleeping soundly. He's in good shape. Shouldn't I be happy to hear that? But for some reason, you Lily felt an indescribable pain in her heart. So, after breaking up with me, he will be in better shape? How is that possible? You Lily didn't believe it. But she saw Qiao Ziqing's relaxed expression. She didn't seem worried about her son at all. Instead, she looked very relaxed and happy. Old Mrs. Shin looked at her and said, "Is that so? That's great. I was worried that something would happen to your son. After all, the engagement between your family and mine hasn't been canceled. In the future, our families will become in-laws. I don't want my granddaughter to marry a cripple." Her words were so direct that it was embarrassing. You Lily felt as if a knife had cut into her heart. In that moment, she suddenly felt that everything around her had nothing to do with her. The engagement between Shin Manting and Ming hasn't been canceled. So, their engagement hasn't been canceled? After what happened between Shin Manting and Shin Luo, and their engagement hasn't been canceled. You Lily found it hard to believe. But, looking at the expressions of Qiao Ziqing and Huijin, she knew. It was true. Qiao Ziqing was a little embarrassed and said, "Grandma, how can you say that? Our son. Is your son really a cripple?" Old Mrs. Shin looked at her and asked sharply. Qiao Ziqing's words were stuck in her throat. She didn't know whether to say yes or no. Ming's condition was indeed not good. Not only was he blind, but his hand was also fractured. But how could his parents accept the word cripple? When you Lily saw that, she quietly reached out and tugged on old Mrs. Shun's sleeve. In a low voice, she said, "Grandma, Ming is fine." "What do you mean by fine? Is it really as you said? He can't see?" Old Mrs. Shun didn't have the slightest intention of hiding her voice. "Isn't he blind? What's the difference between that and a cripple? Our granddaughter can't marry someone like that." Old Mrs. Shun. A young man's voice came from the second floor. This voice was cold and displeased, and it made one's heart tremble. You Lily's heart fluttered. She looked in the direction of the voice and saw Ming in his pajamas. At that moment, Ming's hand was in a cast hanging from his neck. His eyes were looking straight ahead. He looked empty and lifeless, like a puppet. If you have come to see if I am crippled, you have seen it. I am blind and crippled, as you know. You may go back. As for enchanting, what gave her the confidence to believe that I would marry a woman like you, who has ruined our family's reputation? Ming, can't afford to be cuckolded by my brother. Lily hadn't said a word since she entered the house. Ming knew that old Mrs. Shun hadn't come alone. When he heard her call herself their granddaughter, he naturally assumed that the person who had come was enchanting. Chapter 1167. Please go back. It's the new year, and no one will be happy if things go sour. As she spoke, she groped her way downstairs. Such a scene was shocking to the eye. Xiao Ziqing immediately stood up and wanted to walk in Ming's direction, but she was one step too late. Lily's footsteps were fast as she ran in that direction. Ming couldn't see, but he could vaguely guess who it was from the sound of her footsteps. Just as Lily was about to reach him, Ming stopped. "Why are you here?" Ming asked. It was obvious that he had recognized Lily. Xiao Ziqing and Huijin looked at each other and saw different emotions in each other's eyes. Old Mrs. Shun was still sitting on the sofa, drinking tea calmly. She looked at Lily on the second floor with a look of admiration in her eyes. Brave. Not bad. Lily didn't say anything. She walked up to him and grabbed his uninjured arm without a word and pulled him forward. Ming's footsteps were frozen in place. He didn't move an inch. "I thought I made it clear yesterday that we broke up. Lily, what's the point of doing this?" He didn't wait for Lily to speak before he turned to the side and shouted, "Mom, didn't we agree not to let her in?" Hearing that, Xiao Ziqing's heart was filled with doubt. Could Ming be serious? Ming didn't look like he was faking it. Why did he suddenly break up? Xiao Ziqing wasn't the only one who was curious. Even Lily herself was baffled. "Ming," Lily shouted. "Why are you saying something like that for no reason? You have to give me a reason. I didn't meet you yesterday, so don't even think of escaping today. You have to give me an explanation, or I won't leave." Yes, for no reason. No one would be willing to accept such a situation. Even Ming himself wouldn't easily accept such a sudden breakup. Could he tell her that he had thought it through and didn't want to hold her up any longer? Could he tell her that he didn't want her to be a cripple for the rest of her life, and that she should find another way out and find another man? If he said that, Lily would be even more unwilling to break up with him. Ming knew her very well. Lily was a good girl, and it was precisely because of this that he could not delay her. It was very likely that he would be like this for the rest of his life, blind, forever in need of others to take care of him, unable to work, becoming a burden to his family and his parents, forever living in darkness, never to see the light of day. Furthermore, Xiao Ziqing's opinion of Lily was huge. It wasn't something that could be changed overnight. He couldn't afford it, and he didn't want Lily to compromise because of him. Hearing Lily's words, Ming's heart tightened. He wanted to pull his hand back, but Lily's hands were holding him tightly. Ming couldn't push her away with just one hand. He simply let her hug him and said coldly, "A man doesn't want a woman who is greedy for money and vanity. Isn't that a reason?" Lily felt a stab in her heart. She looked at Ming in disbelief. "Are you talking about me? Is there someone else besides you?" Chapter 1168. Lily's voice was filled with disbelief. She unconsciously loosened her grip on Ming. Ming took the opportunity to pull his hand back and said, "I'm denouncing my ex-girlfriend. She did all the hypocritical things she could. On the surface, she treated me impeccably, but in reality, she was willing to do anything to marry me. Outsiders must think that you're loyal, but do you think I don't know your true colors? You want to marry me? Then use all means to get a divorce and get a large share of the alimony, right?" The more Lily listened, the more unreasonable she found it. Such a reason? Such a reason? Nonsense! Lily roared. "Ming, you're crazy. What nonsense are you talking about? Do you think I care about your family's money? If you don't care, why won't you break up with me? If you don't care, why are you still pestering me?" Ming retorted. His tone was urgent. My mother is right. Orphans like you are hypocritical. You grew up without parents, so you don't know anything about relationships. Xiao Ziqing was caught off guard. She was stunned. Huijin was equally baffled. No one had expected that in just a few days, the relationship between Ming and Yu Lily would change so much. Apart from Ming himself, no one could understand what he meant. Yu Lily's body trembled with anger. She looked at Ming, and even her breathing became rapid. Ming took advantage of the situation and said, "You were with me because of this from the beginning, weren't you? You were with me because I was rich and healthy. Now that I'm disabled, the most important thing..." Slap! A loud slap interrupted Ming's words. Ming's head was buzzing. It was as if a swarm of flies were flying around his ears. Xiao Ziqing's eyes widened and she shouted, "You be *T-Siege? How dare you hit my son?" As she said that, she flew forward. Ming laughed coldly. "Are you angry because your secret has been exposed? Yu Lily, aren't you very tolerant? Now you're..." Slap! Another vicious slap landed on Ming's face. Neither side of his face was spared. Ming's head was dizzy and his body swayed. Yu Lily didn't expect Ming to be so fragile. The wounds on both sides of Ming's cheeks, which were wrapped in gauze, quickly oozed blood. Looking at his wobbly body, Yu Lily subconsciously wanted to go forward and hold him, but she was pushed away harshly. Yu Lily was caught off guard and stumbled. Xiao Ziqing's anxious voice could be heard. She cried out to Ming, "Son." Ming's head buzzed, and he barely managed to steady himself. Xiao Ziqing supported him. His surroundings were murky, and he felt a little dizzy. His heart ached, as if it was being sliced into pieces. In the darkness, Ming could clearly feel the tears seeping from the corner of his eyes. He laughed coldly and said with some sadness, "Do you see that? I can't even avoid a woman's slap now. Do you fancy a man like that? How dare you say it's not for the money?" Yu Lily, you are so hypocritical. Yu Lily's heart had originally felt sorry for him, but now it was all gone. This kind of man, she must be blind to have fallen in love with this kind of man. She should have seen through it a long time ago. Was the lesson in the nightclub and the hospital not deep enough? You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.